Guys, our main channel has some temporary issues, so we created a new one to keep posting without interruptions. To unlock all features there, we need to reach 1,000 subscribers quickly. So please subscribe and share the link with a friend. You'll find it in the description and pinned comment. The story begins with lightning being cast in the place. The boy with his hands tied wonders why he has reached this point and where he actually is. The orc raises his sword and says that the next to receive divine punishment will be the inferior human who trespassed into the sacred land. For thousands of years, the sacred land of the beast folk had been isolated from the outside world. For the first time in history, a human had entered into it. This is an act of war against the human who broke the alliance and who may bring divine punishment. The boy thinks that he was in a cave just a short time ago. The orc begins to say divine punishment many times. The frightened boy wonders if he will lose his life in this very world. 5 hours earlier, a voice tells Tsuyoshi to hurry and finish eating. And it's a young man who also tells him not to wander off after they go in. There are 2 other cleaning teams besides theirs today. If they are careless, there will not be any leftovers. While the protagonist eats, he asks why so many people go to a C-rank cave. The young man sits on the sofa and replies that it is the season when more cleaners are showing up. It's not as if they are heroes. A voice calls them and tells them to get ready because the heroes are coming. Sui eats quickly and says he understood. They walk and a voice says that even if it is just a C-rank cave, it still gives chills when getting closer. If a C-rank is like this, he cannot imagine the terror of an A or S-rank cave. They arrive in front of the portal and one of them finds it strange and says that there had been some darklings there. They go in. The warrior says he is lucky to get a reward so easily. He thinks they have done well. His partner at his side agrees. The cleaning assistants say that heroes are very cool and if they could become one, they could earn a lot of money. His partner tells him to stop being rebellious and reminds him that they became cleaners because they failed the awakening test. The cleaner thanks them for the hard work and asks if they can enter now. The warrior woman answers to go ahead. The protagonist is Tsuyoshi Tsukishiro, after the heroes subdued the darklings in the cave. Cleaners like them, commonly known as garbage collectors, come to collect the leftovers. They have no relation to the heroes. Cleaners and heroes live in different worlds. The protagonist failed the awakening test because of his physical constitution, but also wanted to be a hero. A voice says that this is a ruined cave, so it is not very big since it is only C rank, and the cleaner leader says to work quickly because there is not much time, and the cave will close in 4 hours. They need to finish and regroup there. They answer that they understood. They begin to search for the rest. They find a fragment of a shield and say that it is a good sign because that thing is worth money. It seems that his parents are in heaven looking after him. Tsuyoshi says that may be true. He will search a little deeper inside. His partner says he understood and not to forget to meet again in 3.5 hours. Tsuki says he understood and thinks that good things are usually deeper and will continue. 3.5 hours later, after Shiro has searched for quite some time, he finds it strange and asks if there is nothing there and thinks that if all there is a single shield fragment, this is not good. A voice calls him and says it is almost time to meet. The protagonist answers that he is almost done and thinks that this will not even cover 1 day of Karina's medical expenses. He needs to hurry and find something. Until he looks to the side and asks himself if that is a well. He thinks he smells treasure and wonders why there is a well inside the cave. When Suki gets closer, he notices that it looks dry and thinks there may be something valuable, thinking that if he finds some intact equipment, it could cover a week of Karina's medical expenses. Then Shiro notices something shining on the finger of the corpse and says that it is a ring, thinking it is a corpse left behind in the cave. It seems that the heroes did not notice. The protagonist goes down there with his rope. Tsuyoshi takes the ring and begins to shout that he got a rare item, a ring. This kind of equipment normally has some small status increase effect, but is sold for a great price and made a fortune. He thinks that he will use it for now and will have his level checked by Nakazato later, and it is better to get closer and regroup. When Suki puts the ring on, he feels something and asks what this ring is. A message arrives that the Ring Without Limits recognizes him as its owner. From now on, the Ring Without Limits cannot be removed or have its ownership changed. The Gate Without Limits will open soon. And Shiro asks whose voice this is and what it is. A light begins to spin around his hand with the ring, and the protagonist says for the Lord to help him. The cleaner asks if that voice was not the boy's, and if he had not been there a short time ago, the partner answers that he probably went to look in another area and that the boy is surely giving it his all. Unfortunately, he was not able to become a hero, and they will wait for him. There is still time. Meanwhile, Tsuyoshi is pulled, and when he regains consciousness, he finds himself captured by the beast folk in front of an altar as one of the criminals to receive divine punishment. Tsuki thinks that this place seems to be a sacred land for the beast folk and wonders if he was sent there from that well. The Beast King is sitting on his throne and says to begin. The orc says they will execute 3 great criminals. The first is one of their own who sold confidential information about the territory to the despised elves and humans. The people shout saying he is a traitor, that he is a disgrace, and that he deserves divine punishment. The Beastman traitor is kicked and falls to the ground, and a voice says that the hammer of the Divine King, surrounded by punitive lightning, will crush all sins. No one will ever escape this altar, the domain of divine punishment. Lightning is cast upon the traitor as voices shout to bring divine punishment upon him. The Beastman, with his sword raised, says that the next to receive divine punishment will be the inferior human who trespassed into the sacred land, the first human in history to wander into the sacred land of the beast folk that had been isolated from the outside world for thousands of years. This is a declaration of war and may bring divine punishment upon the human who broke the alliance. The protagonist says to wait because this is a misunderstanding, and he just accidentally got lost there. He is not one of the humans from there. And his sister is waiting for him, and he is begging. The orc says that is enough. Tsuyoshi, in despair, thinks he cannot lose his life there because he still has Karina and has the dream of becoming a hero, and wonders how it came to this. Tsuki is called an insect and asked how a mere human could defeat the great beast folk. The monsters shout for him to lose his life and turn to ashes in divine punishment, and to bring divine punishment upon the sinner. And Shiro thinks that he cannot lose his life in a place like this. He runs dodging the lightning. The beast looks surprised and asks if he dodged. The people around are very surprised. The orc asks if he avoided the lightning of divine punishment and says that this is unprecedented. The king observes. The protagonist says that he refuses to lose his life there. The lightning is cast again, hitting him this time, and the orc, very excited, laughs and asks who said that the lightning of divine punishment strikes only once. Now it is time for the next. The monsters shout, "Divine punishment." While Tsuyoshi is burned, he thinks that he cannot lose his life there. The system notifies that it is activating the ring without limits. Divine selection system. Tsuki's body begins to shine. More notifications arrive that the activation is complete and that it is initiating body repair and building the supreme physique. The king notices something, noticing the boy at his side, and the orc asks if that guy is still alive. The lightning begins to be destroyed, and the system notifies that it is building the supreme physique, 15% complete. They look surprised. Shiro's body returns to normal while it is notified that it is building the supreme physique. The protagonist walks thinking that something is calling him. Lightning is cast, and Tsuyoshi continues walking while the physique is being built. The beast folk are outraged seeing this. Lightning is cast, and the orc says that it is impossible because, besides the Divine King himself, no one has ever come so close to the hammer of the Divine King. And someone asks if that guy is trying to lift the hammer of the Divine King. Tsuki wonders if it is he who is calling him. The pressure in the environment becomes very intense, and Shiro wonders why it called him. The system notifies that the supreme physique was built 100%, introducing the chosen special status. The pressure in the environment becomes extremely intense, and very powerful energies are emitted from the protagonist's eye. The monsters look outraged. Lightning is emitted around his hand, and Tsuyoshi takes the hammer. The pressure becomes more and more intense, and more notifications arrive about having acquired the Divine Hammer and reached level 3, current power of the Divine Hammer unlocked due to insufficient capacity. The true power of the Divine Hammer cannot be demonstrated. Special effects unknown. Lack of skill cannot be confirmed. The girl at his side is surprised that a human lifted the Divine Hammer. The orc wonders if a mere human managed to lift the Divine Hammer and thinks it is impossible and that they cannot allow a mere human to touch the sacred Divine Hammer. Not even the great Beast King managed to lift the Divine Hammer, and he wonders again how a mere human managed this, because the one who lifts the Divine Hammer will become the leader of the Beast Folk, and this must be something bad. Tsuki looks at his status and thinks that somehow he feels much stronger, and wonders if he reached level 3 and if this is the Divine Selection System. Someone approaches him, and it is the orc saying for him not to dare touch the Divine Hammer with dirty hands. The beast folk say that man is the great general Ryuga, and surely he will not allow a human to act so arrogantly, and that he will help recover the pride of the beast folk. The orc says he does not know what kind of trick he used, but to think that he escaped divine punishment and even lifted the Divine Hammer, that he should quietly return the hammer and accept punishment. The system notifies that the passive skill Divine Eye has been activated, and the use can check detailed information about any item by focusing on it with cooldown of 0 seconds. Shiro wonders about the passive skill Divine Eye. The protagonist looks ahead, managing to see the data of the orc in front of him with the name Ryuga, title of general, in level 8. Tsuyoshi wonders about the Divine Eye because he can see the opponent's information, and also wonders if it is a feature of the system. The orc calls him inferior human and asks how he dares to challenge him because it seems he has some courage, and he will make sure he loses his life quickly. Tsuki says to wait because it is a misunderstanding and thinks that there is no way he will fight a level 84 warrior. The general tells him to shut up and take this. Shiro says for him to listen. The girl, who is also about to be eliminated, thinks that this human is doomed. General Ryuga is one of the 5 great generals under the Beast King. Even among the beast folk, he is an extremely strong opponent. A human would be cut in half with a single blow. An explosion happens after the general attacks, but the protagonist, using his strength, manages to block and wonders if he blocked. Tsuyoshi thinks that his hands were finished and that this hammer is incredibly resistant. The general thinks that he managed to block his quick blow and his body endured the shock, even though he only used a hammer, and says he was lucky that the hammer saved his life, because next time it will not. Tsuyoshi says it is a misunderstanding, that he himself is not from this world and that he should listen. The general, without thinking twice, advances again and says there is nothing to listen to. The orc grabs him and thinks he will throw him to the sky and finish him with the earthquake. Notification arrives about the active skill Absolute Replication activated. The use is to feel the opponent's heart with the hand and choose a skill to replicate from all available. Cooldown of a few seconds. However, only one skill can be stored at a time. If a new skill is replicated, the original skill is replaced. Tsuki wonders about replicating skills and about feeling the opponent's heart with the hand, and thinks that in other words, he has to touch his chest. Shiro touches his chest, the general likes it, and ends up releasing him without realizing. Several notifications arrive, and the protagonist observes, thinking there are so many, as if he could choose one among them. The orc asks what he is doing to himself and says to take this, Heaven and Earth. Tsuyoshi activates his skill, Heaven Shaker, and thinks that it seems compatible with the hammer, goes with it and says that he cannot afford to lose his life there. The general observes and shouts that it is impossible, asking how he can use his technique. Great impacts are caused, everyone looks surprised after the general is attacked. He also says that the control of power does not hurt at all and in fact is a little unpleasant. More notifications arrive that it may be level 3, no profession and inability to use weapon. No damage was caused to the opponent and to improve skills to increase effectiveness. Tsuki looks surprised. The general takes his sword and advances, calling him filthy human and asking how he dares humiliate him. Until someone moves and says, that is enough, the beast folk start shouting that it is the Beast King and that the Beast King himself is taking action. A huge pressure is caused around and the winds become stronger. Smoke dissipates and the king is head lowered, kneeling on the ground. The monsters, extremely outraged, ask if the Beast King kneeled. The king says that it seems he really was chosen by the divine hammer, and that this may be a sign from the gods. For hundreds and thousands of years, he is the first to be chosen by the hammer, and tells his companions that no one ever managed to lift the divine hammer, and yet this human managed. The beast folk watch, and the king says that if he really is the future leader of the beast folk, then they should give him his time to grow. The beast folk do not like this at all and say that indeed the prophecy speaks of this, and he is not even a beast man. The general says that he is a human. The king asks what lies behind, and if the prophecy specified that the leader must be a beast man, and if he is saying that, they should ignore the one who embodies hope for the people. The general says that this would be unthinkable, however, even if the prophecy did not specify, if he is not a beast man, then in the future. The king interrupts him and asks the boy what his name is. The protagonist answers his name. The Beast King says that if he is willing to carry their future on his shoulders, then he will release him. However, he is too weak as he is now. Within a year, he must gain strength and return there. At that time, they will see if he is worthy of being the leader. If he does not return in a year, he will use this mental mark to hunt him and eliminate him wherever he is. Thus, his people will be satisfied, and he asks what his answer is. A voice says to accept, and it is the girl saying for him to win his freedom and become stronger. Tsuyoshi thinks that that girl should be punished later, and will try to use the Divine Eye skill, and the system cannot show her name or title, only that she is at level 72 and the profession is Beastman Warrior, dagger user, without any weapon. The girl says that it is better to be alive and not waste the miracle given by the gods. Tsuki wonders about level 72, and if she really could be a strong warrior and why she was marked as a criminal. Shiro smiles and thanks, and thinks that indeed, as she said, this is a miracle. There is no time for hesitation. First, he needs to survive. After that, he can find a way back to his original world, and he says that he accepts his offer. However, he has a condition. The king asks about the condition. The protagonist says that she goes with him. The girl asks about herself, and Tsuyoshi thinks that now they are balanced. No debts. Then Suki is leaning against the wall, thinking about that voice he heard at that time. It seems that everything began with this ring without limits, and it will not come off, but thanks to this ring he gained these strange abilities, and he wonders how to say that he will return to the original world. A voice calls him Master and says that the preparations are complete. Shiro asks about Master, and the girl answers yes, and that she decided to serve him, her savior. The protagonist thinks that being called Master by such a cute girl with beast ears is simply irresistible. He gets embarrassed and says that it is nothing much, and that her words also helped him, and from now on, they will support each other regarding being called Master or being served. The girl says that he does not know how much that means to her, and that he gave her a second life, and no one ever supported her or thanked her so directly except him, and that she may call him Master. The girl says that his appearance is nothing less than a miracle for herself, and she wants to dedicate everything to him. Tsuyoshi, embarrassed, says that if that is what she wants, then of course she can call him Master. The girl calls him to walk, as it is getting quite late, and also warns him to watch his step. Tsuki feels relieved and finds the other world amazing, and thinks no, and asks himself what he's thinking since Karina is waiting for him. More notifications arrive that the passage without limits is already available for use, and a note that the cooldown time is 24 hours. Shiro thinks that is right and that he was dragged into the passage without limits and transported to this world, and if he follows the same route he should be able to return, and says to open the passage without limits. A light begins to be emitted around him, and the protagonist thinks that is it and that he can finally go home. The girl looks to the side, no longer able to see him, and calls for him while Tsuyoshi is being pulled, and also says that as expected, the feeling of distortion of space-time is the worst. Tsuki has his eyes wide open and is looking at his hands, asking if he returned. He is still a little confused until he receives more messages from the system, and Shiro says that he got skills that he gained in the other world and they are still there. His level is still 3, and he asks why the Divine Hammer is still there. More notifications arrive that personal attributes are shared between the two worlds, but items are not. To use items from another world, they must be placed in the Divine Consciousness inventory first. The protagonist says that since levels are shared, leveling up in any world should not be a problem, and asks if he managed to bring the Divine Hammer there because it was in the Divine Consciousness inventory, and if that means with his current level 3 status. A voice asks what all the commotion is and says to get out quickly before the cave closes. Tsuyoshi asks why he is still there, since he has been away for hours, and wonders what is happening, since he spent at least 5 hours in the other world and thinks that something is not right. The man says that he was there the whole time, and it is good that he came to get him, and that he should come closer and get out and not to delay because when the cave closes, he will be trapped inside forever. Tsuki begins to climb the rope and thinks that time froze, and wonders if while he was in the other world, time here was completely stopped, and thinks that it is like something straight out of a manga. And Shiro, while climbing, also wonders if time is also frozen in that other world now, and who is the original owner of this ring without limits. The protagonist manages to climb up and says that the next awakening test is tomorrow. Next, a rainy day is shown, and Tsuyoshi is crying and is also covered in plasma, while carrying his sister in his arms running, and around everything is being destroyed by monsters. Karina says that she cannot feel her legs and asks if their parents are okay. Explosions happen. Tsuki stops beginning to tremble and thinks that this cannot be happening. Great impacts happen around, the monster approaches. Shiro, desperate, begins to cry a lot and continues running with his sister in his arms. Someone calls him putting an arm in front and says for him to stop, he will lose his life, so he must keep walking. And it is a man saying for him not to go back because if he goes back, he and his sister will be finished by the darkness too, and to stay calm because he cannot defeat the darkness. Attacks continue and the protagonist shouts about his sister's legs and that they need to take her to a hospital quickly. In the present time, in the hospital, Karina is in a wheelchair and asks if he will really take the awakening test tomorrow and if he is sure he is okay, and says that he just came back from work today. The nurse says that she is still so thoughtful that she should also rest. Tsuyoshi says he is fine and asks about her if her legs still hurt and says that nerve pain occurs regularly as a result of the nerves, so she needs to make sure to take the medicine. Karina says she is fine, and even though she cannot stand anymore, the pain is still there, but she is already used to it. Tsuki wonders if his sister is really not suffering. More notifications arrive that the target's body information, both legs were trapped under a collapsed building, 98% of nerve cells necrotized. The condition includes intermittent nerve pain. There is no possibility of natural recovery, the chance to walk unaided again. Shiro thinks that only 1% chance to walk unaided must be very difficult for her, and Karina should have been able to live a normal life. go to school, go out with friends, travel. She must want to spend every day with a smile on her face. Karina is his only family. He does not want to see her suffer more than she already has. Even if the chances are close to zero, he will ensure that she will be able to stand on her own again. As long as there is 1% chance, there is still hope. There must be a way to do this. And if he could become a hero, he could have access to more information and perhaps find a solution. It is not just about curing her legs, and he wants to live his life with pride, and that is why he will become the strongest hero that exists. At BTG Brave Test Group, Awakening Test Site, a voice says that the measurement result, Level 3, Combat Power 540, congratulates him for being a hero. The staff member says to accept the hero emblem that was personalized based on the test results. The awakened one leaves very excited, saying that he is finally a hero. The woman beside says that he is her boss and to keep working hard to reach rank C, she will throw a big party to celebrate tonight. The staff member calls for the next and says that retaking the test for having failed the first time, and when ready to enter and place his hand on the measuring device, although he himself doubts it will be different from the last time. The protagonist with a stern face says that they will see if this is a waste of time or not soon. The staff member says that if he failed once, it is likely that the result will be the same every time. After all, this device measures scientifically from all angles. He has seen many stubborn people like him pass through there. Tsuyoshi enters the room and thinks that that last guy was also level 3 with combat power 3. And that is within normal, and he himself is also level 3 now. So he should qualify to be a hero, and wonders how high his combat power will be. Tsuki thinks that he needs to take this seriously. The veins of his arm pulse as he puts his hand, and the environment is filled with enormous pressure. The staff member asks if it is an earthquake. The scoreboard moves quickly, and a voice says that measurement result level 3, combat power 5,400. The record of level 3 hero combat power in 30 years was broken. Ranked first in level 3 hero combat power. The second place in combat power is 930. Shiro wonders about 5,400 and thinks that this is 10 times more than the last, and imagined that he had a somewhat resistant body but did not expect this. The protagonist gets very excited and is quite curious about the power of the divine hammer. Lightning is emitted from Tsuyoshi's hand, and the system notifies that due to insufficient level and other conditions, the true potential of the hammer of the divine king cannot be released. Forcing the release will drain a huge amount of energy. Tsuki takes the hammer and says that in his current state he can only manage 1 second, and 1 second should be enough time for the machine to roughly calculate combat power. He will see how much his combat power increases with this and will try. Shiro begins to release the power of the hammer of the divine king, and more notifications arrive that the power of the hammer of the divine king has been released for a 1-second launch. The protagonist thinks that all the energy in his body was drained in an instant. The power is extremely powerful, and Tsuyoshi says to show how much his combat power increased. A strong light is emitted over the sky, and people ask if there is an earthquake and what is happening. And the scoreboard shows about the energy overload, that it is impossible to measure. The surroundings begin to shake because of the pressure, and the staff member says that due to the black spot, the test was suspended and that they should evacuate immediately. And they ask who he is. Afterwards, Tsuki walks down the corridor and thinks that he underestimated it and did not expect all his strength to be drained in just 1 second, and he should avoid using the hammer of the divine king until he has gained proper strength. Shiro smiles and thinks that at least he is officially a hero now. At the training field, a voice says that she herself is Gaia, the heroine responsible for his training. The instruction will be difficult, but he will need to keep up. The boys respond that they understand. After the protagonist analyzes his data, he wonders if it is only 1,200 combat power at level 9 because he wonders how much his combat power will be when he reaches level 9. Gaia thinks that she is being put in charge of training rookies and would rather be exploring a D-rank dungeon than doing this manual work, and says that all of them will enter a D-rank dungeon tomorrow, and after some field experience they will find out which profession suits them best. There is even a chance to get low-level items. The boy asks if they are already going to a dungeon and if there should not be a week of basic physical training first, and if they should not decide their professions before entering the dungeon. The instructor asks about basic physical training and says that there is no time for that. Now that they are heroes, they will perfect their skills through real combat, and is warning that their training will be rigorous, and if they cannot keep up, they can leave, and asks if they understood. They respond yes. Tsuyoshi thinks that this is just him venting his frustration. And in the end, a hero is still human. Tsuki remembers the girl from before and thinks that after all, there is a level 72 beast waiting for him. As soon as the cooldown time of the Boundless Passage ends, he will return to the other world. Later in his apartment on television, the reporter is saying that due to the earthquake around 7 p.m. today, a power outage affected some areas of the city. Fortunately, no injuries were reported in the earthquake. Shiro thinks that it is fine, and now that the cool-down time of the passage has ended, it is time to return to the other world. He thinks that he will get stronger there and choose his profession and gather all the equipment he needs. Open, boundless passage. Then, in another place, the protagonist opens his eyes and thinks that he is back there, and the scenery is still the same as before. And he even wonders if his clothes return to what he wore the first time, because he understands that after he leaves this world, time and equipment return to the original state. The girl approaches and asks if there is any problem. Tsuyoshi thinks that he almost forgot about her and says that it is nothing, and anyway they will start leveling up, and that she can show the way. The girl says that she is glad to see that he is eager. Tsuki says that there is a nest of level 3 goblins nearby and asks what she thinks of practicing there first. The girl says that even if they are level 3, those goblins are scary, cunning, and numerous, so he must stay vigilant. Shiro thinks that if they are cunning, it is she who needs to be careful. Goblins now are starting to feel like a real fantasy world, and he is excited to see what kind of effects the divine selection system will have, and says that it is decided the first target is the goblins. Then the two are hiding behind the bushes, and the girl says to be careful not to wake the goblin sentries. The protagonist says that she is level 72 and should be able to defeat them easily, and thinks that her combat power is 630,000, and that is impressive as expected of level 72. The girl asks how he knows her level. Tsuyoshi says that he is not her master for nothing, and asks if she could show how a high-level hero fights. The girl says that if she fights alongside him, he will not gain experience points and the level difference is too great. Tsuki asks if there are such rules and says that he wanted to see her in action. The girl asks in action and says that he is releasing her, but if he insists she will try, she is not sure how much it will help, but that he can observe carefully. The girl gets into attack position and cuts the opponent in half with just one strike. Shiro says that this is the move of a level 72 warrior, and it is so cool. The girl says that he is very kind and always gives his best even against low-level opponents. Hopes it was useful. The excited protagonist asks if she could teach the technique she used before. The girl says that it is the instant strike, that it is a skill for high-level warriors, so it is not suitable for him now. Besides, she asks if he has not yet decided on a profession. Tsuyoshi says that if that is the case, he will also become a warrior. After all, he has her with him, and thinks that with a level 72 warrior at his side, it would be easier to replicate skills without worrying about class compatibility. But since he himself cannot use the hammer of the Divine King, he needs to find a substitute weapon. The system notifies about his profession of warrior. The girl holds his hand and says that he chose to become a warrior for himself and will make sure to be useful and will do her best to help him level up. First, they will gather some equipment for warriors. Tsuki gets embarrassed and thinks about this gentle world. A voice says that it is time for a shift change. The goblins advance to attack, saying that there is an intruder. Shiro says that it seems he will have to deal with those guys alone and that he can borrow a dagger, that there is something he wants to try. A notification is received that the equipped silver daggers are lent. The girl says that facing an enemy of the same level, head-on, is a bit. The protagonist gets into attack position and thinks that he has not yet fully tested the power of Heaven Shaker. They will be his guinea pigs. Tsuyoshi stares and advances, with the blade causing a huge impact. The girl watches and thinks that to defeat goblins of the same level in an instant, even a group of 6 would have difficulty against them. Tsuki manages to eliminate the opponents easily and says that this seems surprisingly easy and will eliminate the rest of those goblins, and thinks that the divine selection system is quite fascinating. He will reach level 4 by the end of the night. The system shows his status. The girl apologizes for the inconvenience and says to use this as a weapon for now. Shiro extends his hand and takes a staff, saying for her not to worry, because even a goblin staff is not so bad. The girl says that they need to hurry and gather some basic equipment. The current equipment hardly offers any defense. The protagonist realizes something and thinks that indeed, without proper equipment, he himself would be completely vulnerable to attacks. He will not only need a weapon, but also armor. By the way, he researched a little about the Divine Consciousness inventory before. Unlike normal item storage, the items placed in the Divine Consciousness inventory can be used in both worlds. It is interesting. For now, there are only 2 slots, and the hammer occupies 1, so only 1 remains. Tsuyoshi keeps observing the system and thinking that it seems that as he trains and grows, the level increases. The Divine Consciousness inventory slots also expand, and he wonders how he can increase the slots. Because he cannot simply get rid of the hammer, having only 1 open slot is inconvenient. In both worlds, a complete set of equipment is divided into 5 parts. The girl asks if there is something on his face. Tsuki observes her limbs and thinks that girls with beast ears are really irresistible. And he would wonder what other types of races exist in this world and says to her that it is nothing. He was just checking if she is still following him. The girl notices something and draws her weapon immediately, saying that there is something behind him. The level 4 goblins advance to attack. The girl in attack position says that the goblins get stronger as they advance and he needs to stay alert. Shiro asks if that means that the experience points gained will also increase. He advances and tells his partner not to interfere because otherwise he will not gain experience. The goblin calls him a reckless idiot. The protagonist advances and attacks without stopping, managing to eliminate them easily with his incredible strength. The system shows his data, and the experience is increasing. And Tsuyoshi says that the higher the level of the enemy, the more experience he gains. But this weapon is too fragile. The girl watches him and thinks that his potential has an incredible explosive power, and that strike with the wooden staff showed a strength that should not be possible at the master's level. Defeating 3 enemies at once in an instant, despite the level difference, that is master for her. As they went deeper, the number of goblins increased and the levels rose. However, the master's explosive power made the numbers irrelevant. Tsuki says that the skill is good, but the weapon is trash, and that is already the 6th. Shiro thinks that he never expected the experience bonuses in this world to be so great, and he is getting stronger much faster than expected. When he worked as a cleaner, the heroes used to complain that the experience from level 3 and 4 kobolds barely added up to 10 if they did not enter dungeons repeatedly. Leveling up would be a distant dream, moreover. In the original world, the heroes' alliance requires forming a group to enter dungeons. The experience is divided equally, making it inefficient. And he remembers before when they said that everything was taken by the guild, leaving them with nothing. Maybe they should join the guild too. The partners said that all the dungeons were being contested and asked when they would level up. In the present time, the protagonist thinks that in this world he can backpack all the experience. Moreover, the monsters here seem to grant more experience, and that is amazing. He will level up like crazy in this other world. At this pace, he will run straight to the boss. Tsuyoshi glances and wonders if that is the goblin boss. In front of him is a giant and terrifying monster, and the girl says that by bad luck this time the boss was possessed by darkness. Tsuki wonders about the darkness, and if there is darkness in this world too, because in the original world there are also lurking darkness dungeons, and he wonders if it could be the same entity. Shiro also thinks that those dark goblins look like the one that killed his father and mother, and wonders if it could really be the same thing. The girl explains that enemies possessed by darkness are formidable. The boss there is level 6, but once possessed by darkness, the strength becomes exponentially greater, and says that darkness possesses not only a terrifying power, but its very existence is shrouded in mystery. That is why she will deal with this boss alone. The protagonist says no and thinks that he does not know what the connection of darkness with the different is, but he will eliminate all of them, those who killed his parents. Tsuyoshi advances attacking, using his techniques, and with much anger on his face, thinks that he ruined his sister's life. Tsuki attacks, but the monster counterattacks and throws him far. Shiro falls to the ground, badly injured. The monster opens its mouth, releasing its huge tongue. The girl talks about her master's weapon. The protagonist gets up and wonders if he is trying to eliminate him, and thinks of those who took his parents and Karina's enemies. He refuses to be finished by people like him. The supreme physical activation is completed, and Tsuyoshi, with a light being emitted around his body that grows larger and larger, Tsuki clenches his fists and the system notifies that the enhancement is concentrated in the right hand, and it is under immense strain, so he needs to be careful. Shiro says that his body will be his weapon. The monster, with its mouth open, devours everything around, causing a huge pressure, but the protagonist with plasma in his eyes attacks. The girl observes the great impact that is caused and the strong light emitted, and Tsuyoshi manages to eliminate the opponent. The system notifies about the data and the experience points, and Tsuki says that he eliminated all the darkness. The girl talks about his arm that is trembling, and the system notifies about warning that the right hand was seriously injured. If not treated promptly, it will cause necrosis. Shiro used too much strength, and another warning arrives that he can adjust the parts freely and strengthen the body stronger. As he concentrated all the energy in the right hand, it is now unable to withstand an equivalent energy load. The protagonist ends up losing strength and falls into her lap, saying that his arm hurts. The girl rummages in her bag and says not to worry, that she has medicine there. An hour later, still in the same place, there are 2 bats nearby. Tsuyoshi gets up feeling much better and thinks that the recovery speed is much slower than the medicine in the original world, but the effects are immense. Maybe the pharmacy of this world has a longer history. The girl says that she is glad the medicine worked so well, Suki says that he feels even more energized and stronger than before. The girl says for them to receive the rewards now. Shiro agrees, and says that he had completely forgotten about the reward. The system warns that rewards were added. The record for the shortest time to destroy a boss in this cave was achieved. The classification will be updated from partial reward to defined reward. The protagonist observes, and the girl says that there is the treasure chest, and it is also a treasure chest of darkness. Tsuyoshi confused wonders about rewards added and about the treasure chest of darkness, and thinks that darkness-type equipment is extremely rare there. It is the kind of thing you rarely find at auctions, and all his hard work finally achieved this reward, and it is a happy world. Tsuki opens the chest and more notifications arrive warning him that he received the set of dark goblins. The girl says that receiving the set reward is a true blessing, and this outfit will surely be useful for them. Shiro thinks to wait a second, and at the moment there is only one more space in his inventory. The system asks if he wants to store it in his inventory. The protagonist presses yes and wonders if maybe the entire set outfit counts as a single item, and if placed in the inventory it will fit in one slot. The Dark Goblin set was added to the inventory and he can retrieve the set item whenever he wants. Tsuyoshi thinks no and believes it worked. The girl calls him and asks why he is smiling like that. Tsuki replies that it is nothing. He was just looking at the set reward, by the way. Asks if she knows how to sew. The girl answers that yes, and she has been sewing her own clothes since she was little. And then she has a sewing kit with her. At night they are sitting on the grass outdoors. The girl finishes sewing and says that it is done and asks if it is good enough. Shiro answers that yes, and thanks her. He puts on the outfit and says that she is quite skilled. The girl says that she is happy to be able to serve. The protagonist thinks that now that he leveled up and has his equipment, it is time to return and they should settle down tonight to rest and recover. The girl says yes, and to go there. Later, in a building, inside the room the portal is open, and Tsuyoshi leaves and lies on the bed saying that he finally returned. Thinking that after walking with her, they finally found a place to stay, and if he has to wait for her to sleep before returning to rest, and this time, he really got a lot of good things. He cannot stop the time of this world forever and should sleep a little. Tomorrow, they will enter a cave for the first time. The next day, the system notifies that the Dark Goblin set is in the inventory and asks if he would like to wear it. Tsuki presses yes, and the system notifies about activated abilities. A scream makes all low-level enemies within earshot freeze on the spot. At the same time, the hand becomes a giant ghostly tentacle that causes lethal damage. Shiro says that it is amazing and that it has special abilities and this will be fun. The protagonist with another appearance thinks that he will be ruined if he goes out and other heroes see him with this outfit. They say that many heroes eliminated other people and stole the equipment, and if a novice uses this kind of equipment, he will surely stand out. The system asks if he wants to hide the equipment. Tsuyoshi replies yes, and returns to his normal clothes, and Tsuki asks about making them look like normal clothes and says that it is perfect. There are still a few minutes left before the meeting and he needs to buy bread. The phone starts ringing and this is the phone he found in the market. Shiro answers, and a voice asks if he is Karina's brother and says that it is the head nurse and some scary people are at the hospital and want to take her, saying that she owes them money and he must come immediately. The protagonist says not to let them touch her. The nurse says that they took his cell phone and that he should come quickly. Tsuyoshi crushes his phone with his own hands and with great anger grits his teeth. The system shows his data. In the hospital, a desperate voice says to wait for her brother and to stop because this is terrible, and for them not to touch her, and asks what they want from her. The thug says that she cannot have the slightest idea, but he has the reasons to take her away. If the brother borrowed money and did not pay within the agreed time, then they will take her according to the contract. The thug next to him thinks that the only reason he lent money to that idiot was because the young boss liked her. Such a pretty girl would be worth a lot on the black market, and the fact that she cannot walk also pleases the risks. He did some tricks when they made deals, but the idiot did not notice. She is a child, and so they can take her and have fun as much as they want. And he does not know what he is doing. He has done this before. Karina says that her brother would never sign a contract and that he tricked her. The thug says that her brother's weekly payments barely cover the interest and asks when he will pay the principal and will say one thing. If she goes gently with him, they will go easy on her. If she refuses, then there will be no regrets. Someone moves quickly and the protagonist arrives, breaking the door with great anger, asks who he is. The thugs immediately look in his direction and Karina calls for her brother. The thug says to look who finally decided to show up and asks why he is so angry, and if this was not what they agreed on, and says that in any case, he will not need a crippled sister like her. Tsuyoshi, without thinking twice, hits him, knocking a tooth out of his mouth, and then hits him again. The system notifies that the strongest part of the body is the leg that was strengthened, and the movement speed increased. The thug falls to the ground and his henchman approaches, about to strike. Tsuki, with energy being released from his eyes, blocks the attack, deforming his arm. The henchman falls to the ground with his arm deformed and screaming in pain, and the thug, gritting his teeth, says that no one has ever defied him. The thug draws his weapon and talks about challenging the Blue Snake team. This is the first time, and that he can simply be eliminated. The bullet is fired. Karina, worried, shouts no. The bullet approaches him and Shiro catches it with his hand. His sister is surprised and the thug is outraged, along with his henchman, asking if he just caught the bullet with his bare hands. The system notifies that now the strongest part of the body is the hands, which cannot be hurt by ordinary weapons. And the protagonist says that now he is a hero. The three, very scared, ask about Hiro. In the corridor, the nurse guides the police and says that some loan sharks came to threaten a patient and her brother. And when she enters the room, she is paralyzed, looking ahead and seeing the thugs badly injured. The thugs say for him to pay at once as soon as possible, because if the payment is delayed, the boss is also a hero and may not stay quiet, and that he should excuse them, and apologizes for interrupting today, and now they will leave. The nurse finds it strange and is very confused. The thug wonders about the boy having become a hero and thinks he must report this to the boss or his plan to take the sister away will fail. And the boss is a level 100 warrior, and by the looks of it, that boy is still a student and they will destroy him. Karina says that they left, and Tsuyoshi apologizes and says that they cannot see her as much as he would like and is sure if they do not pay them soon, the Blue Snakes will return. He spent the last days trying to figure out how to pay them, but he is a hero now, so she does not need to worry. Karina, surprised, asks if he really became a hero. Tsuki replies that yes, but he is still a trainee now. He will be officially recognized as soon as he goes to the cave today, and thinks that he borrowed $60,000 from the Blue Snakes gang for her treatment. And if he were to earn money steadily in this world, it would take a long time. Even if he became an official hero, the only solution is to sell all the hero equipment. The cooldown for the Boundless Passage ends at night, and he will finally be an official hero. Gaia asks if everyone is there, and explains that today their skills will be tested to see if they are ready to become officially heroes. There are some rules. The most important is that they must hand over all hero equipment they find in the cave. The apprentices reply that they understood. Shiro thinks that he has heard of these things. It seems that the Heroes Union is being ignorant, and thinks that there is nothing wrong with being found in a low-level cave anyway. And Gaia says that as for the test, to be sure that he himself is a level 9 warrior, as long as they follow his instructions, they should have no problems passing the exam. In exchange for becoming official heroes thanks to him, each of them will pay 20,000 yen, and asks if they understood. They answer yes. The protagonist asks why they have to pay the extra fee to them and if they are not already receiving all the equipment from the cave, and says that this way they will have no money for themselves. The boy beside says not to go against him because that man is from the Mad Wolf Guild. Tsuyoshi thinks that he has the guild's support, and no wonder he is demanding money so shamelessly. And still he will not pay a man like him to help the strong and crush the weak, even if he had to lose his life for it. The instructor says that those are his rules, and if he is too poor to pay 20,000 yen, then he can apply for a solo test, and asks if he cannot understand this level of logic and what kind of idiot he is, since he does not care what happens to him for provoking him. The boys ask about solo test and say that no trainee has passed that. Even the strongest heroes would not enter a cave alone, and he is a fool for incurring the examiner's wrath for a mere 20,000 yen. Tsuki asks about applying for a solo test and says that this is convenient. A voice asks if he is serious, and it is the staff member, who also says that he must be mistaken to apply for an individual test and would like to make a final check just to be sure. The clerk says no one has ever passed the test, even though it's only a Class C dungeon, and for a Hero Union exam, he asks if this isn't a suicidal mission for a rookie trainee. The protagonist thanks him for the advice but says there's no doubt about it and he should just let him go. The clerk says he's going to enter now and thinks this is madness. The system notifies the test confirmation, and trainee Tsuyoshi confirms for the solo test. Forest Information Class C, recommended number of participants 5 or more, recommended average combat power. Tsuki says he has only seen dungeons after the heroes had already cleared out the darkness, and wonders if this is what an original dungeon looks like. Suddenly, a beast approaches from behind and strikes him. Shiro turns back, energy swirling around his body and eyes, asking if that was a surprise attack, and declares that this level of power won't hurt him. The goblin looks confused, and after striking it, the protagonist says that it's strong, but compared to his combat power of 6,400, it's nothing but dust. The beast is eliminated, and Tsuyoshi says he knew that the experience gained from enemies in the real world isn't even half of what their counterparts on the other side give, that it's no wonder heroes suffer from slow growth, and that one shouldn't avoid him but rather come directly at him. Several goblins appear, and Suki uses his skill to change his appearance, becoming even stronger, unleashing his immense power against all of them. Meanwhile, outside, the clerk notes that nearly an hour has passed, and if he has endured alone this long, he has already done more than enough. He wonders if this rookie fears nothing, since no one in their right mind would go through a test alone. The Union was already about to abolish this test, and in a few minutes, the rookie's obituary would be in the records. Then a voice announces that the solo test results are updated and Shiro has passed. The protagonist comes out covered in plasma and asks if there's somewhere nearby he can wash himself. On the other side, the portal opens and the instructor steps out with the apprentices, saying that if it weren't for him, they would have been wiped out long ago, and yet he managed to become a hero without even helping in the attacks. 20,000 is very cheap. One of them asks if he wasn't the one who said it was the teacher's order not to interfere. The boy says he rejected his offer of healing magic support and asks if he's dissatisfied with 20,000. Another says that besides this being his first time entering a dungeon, there was hardly any explanation. Gaia says he'll remember his level. He should be charged 40,000, but he'll let him go with 20,000. The instructor talks on the phone saying it's him, asking about the Central Hero exam, and adds that he's busy here, so just get to the point. Gaia then looks irritated, asking if that guy really passed the test and calls it nonsense. Later, the protagonist is washing his hands when someone approaches, asking if he really passed the solo test. It's the instructor who says he took a look, and at most he's a level 4 rookie, asking if he used some kind of high-quality items since no rookie has ever passed the solo test before. Tsuyoshi replies that just because it never happened before doesn't mean it's impossible. Maybe it was because of almost being charged 20,000. Gaia grabs him by the clothes, asking if he's mocking him, telling him to answer before he regrets it, and reveals that he is a member of the Lazy Wolf. Suki says that with level 9 and combat power of 1,200, it doesn't look like a significant guild. The instructor demands to know who he thinks he is and how he dares insult him. Gaia tries to strike him, but Shiro blocks and asks if he plans to beat him to death with his level 9 fists. The instructor looks surprised, thinking about his power and speed, unable to believe he's level 4. Gaia steps back, placing his hand on his back and secretly drawing a blade. The protagonist tells him to wait a minute. The instructor shows the dagger and asks what he's hiding. Gaia attacks with the dagger, but Tsuyoshi blocks using his Black Goblin Set technique, Effect Supreme Physical Defense, and the dagger begins to shatter into pieces. The instructor, still shocked, asks if he's surprised, since he doesn't look like a kid, and insists he must be hiding some kind of equipment, surely high quality. Suki widens his eyes, realizing he accidentally revealed his skill, and thinks it would be very troublesome if the people of this world discovered his secret. Gaia smiles darkly, asking what he has, if he found it in the dungeon or stole it. Shiro feels relieved, saying he was scared, and that if it weren't for that worn-out dagger, things could have gotten dangerous. Someone arrives apologizing for keeping him waiting. The clerk hands him something, saying it's for identity verification, and with this, he is now officially a hero. The protagonist says he understands and will be there now. The instructor stares at him from afar with a frightening expression. The clerk walks away, and Tsuyoshi thinks that, thanks to the system, his combat power is greater than a regular level 4, but facing high-level enemies is still quite troublesome. Later, in his room, Tsuki lies on the bed gazing out the window, thinking it seems he managed to divert Gaia's attention. There are no girls with tool-like ears in this world. His level is still low, so he must avoid attracting notice. In the corridor, two people walk, trying to stay discreet, and one of them asks if this is the place. The mage says that after they break down the door, they are to use magic to immobilize them while defeating and taking them away. The instructor, holding a blade, says they will divide the treasure he has later. The mage tells him not to make loud noises, since that might draw attention, and first to break the chains with magic, as he prepares himself. The mage starts to force the door open, but Shiro opens it immediately with a staff in his hand, saying he's quite fast. The protagonist strikes the mage with the staff and thinks that even with a level 10 mage against him, whose combat power is 3,500, the 6th-level gap puts him at a disadvantage fighting head-on. Combat power is an intuitive indicator to evaluate a hero's ability. His is 6,400, but his level is 4. If the level gap is within 2, he can manage. But even if a level 10 opponent has lower combat power, that level advantage can compensate. In RPG terms, it's like a low-level warrior fighting a weak high-level boss. You should escape relying on equipment and skills, but if you fail, it's instant loss. The mage gets up from the ground, asking if he tried to ambush him, and says he's glad his cloak's defense was reinforced because he'll eliminate him quickly and take his belongings. The bald one unleashes a stream of flames. Tsuyoshi notices the heat and thinks this equipment is strong against physical attacks, but it can't defend against magic. Swinging a staff in a dungeon is completely different from fighting goblins. He needs to escape now, since fighting head-on will lead to defeat. Tsuki runs, jumps through the window, thinking he'll focus body enhancement on his legs, and with the Black Goblin set's defense, he should withstand the landing impact. Shiro uses his supreme physical technique, concentrating enhancement in both legs. The protagonist is attacked and wonders if it was an ambush. The bandit says he got him, asks if he didn't think there was a third person, and says he's wasted on someone like him. Tsuyoshi thinks he's glad he reinforced his whole body before landing. He took a direct knee strike because he removed his abdominal protection when he fell, but thanks to the Black Goblin set's defense, the damage was reduced. The bandit lands nearby and says he's surprised he's still alive. The mage approaches, asking what kind of skill he used to attack earlier, and how a rookie could do such a thing. Tsuki thinks that if they're trying to eliminate him, he's ready to do the same. Shiro activates his technique, changing his appearance and becoming stronger. The mage casts magic using action restriction, and the protagonist realizes his skill was interrupted. The mage says having such an ability at this level means he must have something valuable. The bandit says if they kill him, they'll split the loot. That must be the goal. The system notifies that the cooldown of the Ring of the Unlimited has ended, and the Path of the Unlimited can now be used. Tsuyoshi thinks salvation has come from the sky and that he can open the Path of the Unlimited. A great light is emitted. Tsuki is being pulled and says he'll remember this and all of them. He'll return stronger, and the real fight will be there. Shiro manages to escape, thinking that this time he needs to level up and learn new skills. He got carried away by his good equipment. Without the skills to support him, everything can be taken away. His destiny lies in his own hands. Then the protagonist feels embarrassed seeing the girl asleep beside him, thinking it's still time to rest there, and notices the scent of cherry blossoms. She always smells of those flowers. Tsuyoshi feels intrigued, thinking that if he doesn't take action now, he's not a man. But Tsuki recalls the earlier moment with the bandits and loses heart, saying this isn't the time for that. First, he must overcome the crisis in his original world, plan his level up and skill acquisition. The next day, the girl wakes up saying she slept very well for the first time in a long while. Shiro says he slept well too, but in reality, the protagonist didn't sleep at all because he was restless. And he asks if she could sew another piece of clothing for him so they can go. The girl says that to learn skills, he needs a skill scroll, and the shortcut is to study at the Combat Academy. At the small Combat Academy of the Beastmen tribe, they walk out, and a Beastman asks if he is the human the Beast King took interest in, but adds that there are conditions for enrollment. First, he must reach level 6, then he must pass the exam, and since he is still level 4, it's far too early. Tsuyoshi says that's troublesome. The girl apologizes and says she has been training in the dungeon so long she didn't expect there to be such a requirement. Tsuki says it's fine, besides he needs to level up anyway, he'll come back later. The girl agrees and also says that in that case, he can raise his level in the nearby lower level dungeon until a voice calls him a filthy human and says the Beastmen did not acknowledge him, and if not for the king's words, he would have been torn to pieces. It's the Beastman saying this, and he adds that even if Tsuyoshi reaches level 6, he still won't pass the exam. Bringing up a viaduct racetrack, he says the two of them were a perfect pair. The girl lowers her head, thinking it's really her fault. Her master's so kind that she forgot her place. If she stays near him, it will only cause trouble. She doesn't want to burden her master. She'll eventually have to explain properly and say goodbye. Shiro quickly turns and advances toward the Beastman, grabbing his clothes and calling him a bastard, asking what he just said, and if he should rip his mouth open, demanding that he apologize to her immediately. The Beastman says he was only stating facts. That girl is a hybrid of human and beast. In other words, she is half-beast, ashamed to themselves and doesn't even have her own name. The protagonist thinks that means she is the descendant of a human and a beastman, which is why her name didn't appear when he used the divine eye before. It's because she never had a name to begin with. The Beastman says not to be deceived just because the king took an interest in him. If he disrespects a beast warrior, he will be punished just the same, but he'll allow him to demand an apology from that girl if he passes the exam, though he doubts a mere human could achieve that. The girl steps forward and says he is absolutely right. There is no need to get involved for the sake of someone like herself. A voice says Sakura, and it is Tsuyoshi who tells her to remember that her name is Sakura. The girl's cheeks turn red, wondering if that is the name he gave her. Tsuki tells her to remember what he said before. If she passes, they will demand a proper apology, and they will level up. Elsewhere, Shiro says this is rare and calls her to level up with those guys, and the girl asks why he called her Sakura. The protagonist asks if she didn't like it, saying he gave her that name on an impression. The girl answers that she loved it. She only wanted to know how he came up with it. Tsuyoshi says it's a little embarrassing, She always carries a faint scent of cherry blossoms, and he thought Sakura suited her, so he gave it, and he apologizes for being presumptuous. The girl hugs him and thanks him, saying she truly loves that name and thinks that now her name is Sakura. Tsuki says it was nothing and calls her to begin. Inside the dungeon, a voice asks how the dagger he bought earlier feels, saying it isn't top quality, but it's much stronger than a goblin club. Shiro, holding the dagger, says he's satisfied, that lifting that hammer makes any weapon feel light. Monsters approach. They are fox beastmen. The protagonist tells her to stay back and teach him as usual. He wants the experience, so there's no need to interfere. Sakura agrees and feels excited that he called her by her name. The system notifies the restriction of party mode. If the level difference between the highest and lowest in the group exceeds 5, no experience or items can be obtained from the battle. Tsuyoshi charges forward and says he'll test his new dagger. Sakura warns that foxmen are agile, so he needs to catch their wide swings. Tsuki is about to strike and realizes they really are fast. The foxman raises his weapon and strikes him, but the weapon shatters into pieces because Shiro is using supreme physique. The foxmen stare in confusion, and the protagonist says that with this level of combat power, they can't even scratch him. Sakura thinks her master's defense is just as expected from one chosen by the Iron Hammer. Low-level enemies are no match for him, and with this, he can level up quickly. Tsuyoshi attacks and says that against agile enemies, speed is more important than power, and he has learned that. After all, in this world, leveling up is quick, and there is no need to compete over resources to monopolize experience. At this speed, these ones have a maximum combat power of 3,900, but their levels are 12. No matter how high their combat power is, with that level difference, it's impossible. He's at a numerical disadvantage, and considering their skills, victory will be difficult. He needs to reduce the difficulty of the levels and acquire 4 skills. He will raise his level up to 6 at once, and then make that arrogant beast man bow his head. Sakura agrees. Later, still in the dungeon, there's an armed beast, and in a low voice, someone asks if he's going to defeat that sword. The protagonist says the length and power look perfect for himself. Sakura asks if he wants it, but Tsuyoshi says he was only curious and asks if it really drops. Sakura answers yes. Most items do drop, but the drop rate depends on rarity. It's better to fight until you get what you want. Efficiency varies depending on the dungeon, and using special items can speed things up. The drop rate is the probability of obtaining an item after defeating an enemy. Tsuki thinks that even a drop rate, it really is like a game world, makes the system easier to understand. The Fox Beastman boss is level 7, with combat power of 1,500. Shiro, still hidden, thinks that if he looks carefully, there are all kinds of details written there. The cold black light sword, drop rate of 6%. That's quite low. It looks difficult to get it even by level 6, which is a shame. It's perfect for him. Notifications arrive about the exchange system, needs detected, and the exchange system has been activated, allowing items to be exchanged under certain conditions. The protagonist wonders about an exchange system and also thinks there's still more to it he doesn't know. Currently, the only thing available for exchange is the high probability scroll. The system notifies that the high probability scroll increases the drop rate of all items by 30% for 1 minute. Tsuyoshi wonders about 114 and notices he can trade, questioning if it's 1 scroll for every 30 defeats. Tsuki thinks the number of defeated enemies seems cumulative across both worlds and wonders if trading 3 at once will raise the rate to 96%. Believing then it should drop almost instantly. More notifications arrive. He exchanged 3 high-probability scrolls, conditions fulfilled. Currently, there's no general item inventory, so items cannot be stored. Shiro says they're going to take that sword. It will make him even stronger. Sakura tells him to do his best. The protagonist gets into attack position and tells her to stay focused and give him instructions. The boss notices him there, emits an extremely loud sound, and charges to attack. Tsuyoshi dodges and wonders if that sword has a cold effect attached. Sakura says the Black Fox Beastman is not only agile but also has considerable strength. The weapon is embedded with ice attributes that will slow movement and drain stamina upon hitting, so he needs to aim carefully, exploit the weakness, and end the battle quickly. The Beastman fears fire, so applying flame oil to the weapon will be effective. Tsuki begins to release flames through his sword and says they'll see which prevails, ice or his fire. Flame oil is a mixture of resin and flammable ash. Applying it to weapons grants fire attributes, igniting upon contact with air without needing a spark, an essential item for adventurers. Shiro charges and demands the sword. Sakura says the Foxman's weak points are the armpits and neck. He needs to strike there. The protagonist says understood and attacks with his dagger, spraying plasma. The Foxman begins to scream in pain, and the system notifies that when an enemy's weak point is struck, the status changes to cowardice, allowing double damage. During this period, the enemy's aggression and morale drop significantly, making it more vulnerable to attacks lasting 15 seconds. Tsuyoshi wonders if it has this kind of lifetime effect, finds it interesting, and says he'll take advantage of the opening. Sakura says that enemies in this state have weak points that are easier to identify, so he must be sure to dodge properly while looking for opportunities to attack. Tsuki replies that he understands and thanks her. The opponent tries to strike, Shiro dodges, and thinks that without her advice, he would have lost his life. The Foxman is exhausted. The protagonist asks if it's over and says now it's his turn. Sakura tells him to aim at the neck now. Supreme Physique is activated, concentrated in both arms. Tsuyoshi strikes the neck, and the system notifies that the attack hit the weak point, dealing triple damage. The enemy's status changes to severely damaged and debilitated. Sakura says it was incredible, but not to let his guard down until the end, and she thinks it may be a low-level fight, but with her master, it feels so thrilling. Tsuki leaps, saying this ends now, and delivers his finishing blow. His partner, excited, says that was incredible. Shiro thinks this was truly a satisfying fight. He almost forgot to use the scroll before the drop. More notifications appear that he used 3 high-probability chest scrolls, raising the item chest drop rate to 96%. A light shines and the protagonist says it was just in time. The system notifies experience gained for defeating the boss and also for obtaining a black weapon. Tsuyoshi says 3,000 experience points, and the weapon dropped too. Sakura says he's very lucky since almost no one gets that weapon on the first attempt. Tsuki thinks that even with his exceptional physique, he could still get hurt if careless. But if he finds a weapon that suits him, he should be able to unleash even stronger attacks. He has never seen such a powerful weapon before. If he challenges those 3 from the Mad Wolf with this weapon, things will get interesting. Just a bit more until level 5. He'll reach level 6 tonight, for her sake and his own, and he asks if there's anywhere else to level up since he wants to reach level 6 as fast as possible. The system notifies about the restart scroll, which reduces monster respawn time in dungeons or caves. Its effect decreases in higher level areas or special zones. Shiro says it's simple, just use a restart scroll. The Fox Beastman cave is a low-level area, so monsters will respawn quickly. Sakura says she has a few of them, enough to reach level 6, and suggests taking a break first, adding that she also has healing potions. The protagonist is impressed that she really has everything. Outside the cave, Sakura says this should be enough, and a notification comes that the restart scroll was used and the cave has reset. Tsuyoshi says he can't wait any longer. This cold black light sword is truly impressive. It can even slow enemies with its frost effect. Sakura says some weapons have special effects, and their strength varies, but she's sure he'll find even better weapons in the future. Tsuki thinks of powerful weapons, like the Hammer of the Divine King, a sacred weapon of the Beastmen, stored in the inventory of Divine Consciousness. But right now, even with Supreme Physique, he can only hold it for a second at most. If he could use it properly, he would be invincible. Later, in the second battle with the boss, Shiro asks if it's been feeling good. After defeating the minions, he reached level 5. He says he missed it, and Sakura wishes him good luck. The protagonist charges, saying he's back. Sakura says he's starting to look a bit cruel now. Tsuyoshi faces the enemy and says, no, it's just how it is. He charges and keeps defeating the boss repeatedly, saying he's already replenished his stamina 6 times. From morning to night, he must have collected a full set of Fox Beastman equipment and finally reached level 6. Now he can take the test. At the entrance to the Combat Academy, a voice asks if that human said he'd take the test after reaching level 6, calling him an idiot. A Beastman sitting around the fire asks if a miserable human is leveling up on Beastman land, saying he doesn't know his place. His partner says that even if he did reach level 6, who knows when that would be? Besides, only sturdy Beastmen can enter the Combat Academy. Someone approaches, calling him out, asking who knows when, and says it's a pity for him because he's already level 6. The Beastman, outraged, can't believe it, asking if he leveled up twice in a single day. Tsuki says he'll wake the examiner, he won't wait until tomorrow, and he prepares to make that apology to Sakura as well. The supervisor asks what's going on, saying he was almost asleep, asking about a human test and warning him that if he wastes his time, he'd better be ready for the consequences. Shiro says he meets the requirements to begin the test and also wants to choose a skill from the skill vault. The supervisor says he talks big. Reaching level 6 doesn't guarantee passing the test. Until the Beastman looks shocked, realizing what he just heard, and asks about going from level 4 to 6 in less than a day and how that's possible. The protagonist says not to back down now, and if he passes, he'll apologize to his partner, and as a warrior, he won't go back on his word. The Beastman says fine and asks where all this confidence comes from. The supervisor says this is interesting, he doesn't know what happened, but Fine, they'll do as he says. The idea that a mere human could pass a test meant for them, the Beastmen, is laughable. The priest commander says that if he's reached level 6, then they'll begin now. They, Beastmen, are a main race of strength, and the criteria to pass, if he succeeds, will grant him the right to use the Combat Academy's skill vault. The test is simple. Look at the stone slab on the platform. If he can break it with a single punch, he passes. Tsuyoshi asks about breaking it, and if that's all. The Beastman thinks the commander plans to test the human using an external stone. Even a level 10 warrior would have trouble breaking it. Normally they use regular stones, so he should enjoy his confidence while it lasts. The system notifies the stone's description. The supervisor says it's easy for a Beastman. All he has to do is break it with one strike. He'll show him how it's done, thinking that anyone below level 10 couldn't even scratch the external stone. It isn't hard if it's a normal stone, but if it's a hated human, it's a different story. He tells him to watch carefully, that this is how it's done, and thinks that even at level 20, he needs to give it his all. The supervisor manages to break it using great force, asks if he saw and says it's simple. Now let's see what he's got. Tsuki says he'll try. Sakura tells him to do his best. Shiro sighs and thinks that as long as he leaves a mark, thanks to his excellent physique, he can exceed the expected power at his level. But just in case, he'll adjust his enhancement to maximize the impact and strength of his fist. The protagonist uses his technique, becoming even stronger, with ultimate physique at 50% strength focused on his right arm, granting tremendous power. The supervisor says it may be easy for them, Beastmen, but a weak human can't do it. Tsuyoshi clenches his fist and the supervisor says, "At least leave a scratch." Tsuki shatters the stone into pieces, shocking everyone as great pressure shakes the area. Shiro holds his head and asks if he used too much force, saying it really was simple, he expected something harder. Sakura says, as expected, now he can access the skill vault. The Beastman asks if he saw that. The supervisor asks if he broke the external stone with one hit and says, that's impossible. The protagonist asks if that counts as passing. The supervisor answers, no, he failed. Because he wasn't looking when it happened, the crack must have been from his own earlier demonstration. Breaking the external stone doesn't count, which means he failed because he borrowed his power. Tsuyoshi asks what the plan for the test is now. The supervisor says they'll recommend the next one, the iron bar bending test. This test measures strength. The participant must bend an extremely tough iron bar, real steel that even a beast warrior needs explosive power to bend. Tsuki, with his supreme physique in both arms, easily bends the bar and asks what he thinks now. The furious supervisor responds no, he failed again because that bar wasn't for the test. With no choice, they'll use the most primitive method, arm wrestling. If he lasts 10 seconds against their strongest warrior, he passes. This time, the supervisor thinks, it won't be like before. Not even he himself could beat him. Shiro easily wins the match and the wide-eyed supervisor asks if he didn't even last a second. The protagonist says he's completed 3 tests and passes this time. The embarrassed supervisor answers of course he passes, while a Beastman mutters that this human is terrifying. Tsuyoshi pulls his partner forward and says, now as promised, he will apologize to her. The Beastman says he will keep his word and apologizes for what he said before. Sakura, blushing, says she never expected this. She thought that kind of treatment was simply normal, and tells him not to worry about it. Tsuki says she doesn't need to be reserved. It's only fair that he apologizes. She should just accept it proudly. Sakura says she understands and accepts his apology. At the entrance to the skill vault, a voice says he can only take 1 skill scroll each time he enters. Shiro asks if it's only 1 at a time and says that's ridiculous. The supervisor asks if he thought he could just take whatever he wanted, explaining that the Combat Academy has strict rules. Once inside, he'll have 3 minutes to find a skill scroll he prefers. If he breaks the scroll's seal within that time, it becomes his. If the time runs out, he'll be forcibly expelled by the rules and won't be able to enter again for a while. The protagonist asks about the time limit, the seal, and being expelled by rules. What does this mean? The supervisor explains that the Combat Academy is a significant place representing the region, and to protect the vault, high-level sorcerers or mages were invited to place seals and barriers. The protagonist says this looks more complicated than he expected. Sakura answers that's how it is, and she's heard of even stricter conditions in higher-level combat academies. The door opens and the supervisor says if he understands, then he can enter. They shouldn't even think about stealing a skill or the barrier will expel him immediately. He has 3 minutes to choose a scroll and leave. However, the 3-minute countdown starts right away, and Tsuyoshi is impressed, saying he understands why they need magic to protect this place. With so many skill scrolls, even he would be tempted to steal a few. Tsuki removes his equipment since it's more comfortable wearing just a shirt. Sakura says this is her first time entering the skill vault and each scroll is sealed, so she can't see what they are. It looks like the seals could be broken by brute force. Shiro thinks he was planning to use absolute duplication, but finding a really good skill is difficult. Besides, using absolute duplication might be a bit embarrassing, and he's not sure if she could even do it. He says that either way he'll begin. He just has to use his strength, and he hopes to pick a skill to deal with those three. The protagonist begins releasing his lightning onto the scroll in his hand. The system notifies, shield impact, strike the target hard with the shield, causing physical damage and potentially stunning them. Suitable for defense-oriented warriors or warrior-derived classes. Tsuyoshi asks about shield impact since he doesn't even use a shield. Sakura says he doesn't need this skill, but there's something else to show. The system reveals wind step, move quickly to a specific location to dodge enemy attacks and increase attack speed, suitable for speed-oriented archers or archer-derived classes. Tsuki asks about an archer and says that's not her style. The system also shows war cry, unleash a roar to inspire yourself and nearby allies, raising attack and defense, suitable for command-type warriors or warrior-derived classes. Sakura says war cry is a support skill commonly used by warriors. Shiro says to pass and keep looking. Time left, 2 minutes. The protagonist asks about only 2 minutes remaining, says that's bad, and checks multi-shot, which doesn't help him at all. Sakura asks about the counterattack skill. The system shows that this skill, for a certain time, retaliates against enemy physical attacks with a chance to reflect status effects, suitable for counter-type warriors or warrior-derived classes. Tsuyoshi wonders about counterattack, thinks it could be useful, and says he'll keep it as a candidate. Tsuki continues scanning through skills, frenzied sweep, charm, awakening, but none interest him. Sakura says none of these seem right for him. Time left, 1 minute. Shiro thinks 1 minute left is bad, he's being inefficient. It seems he can check inside the scrolls by breaking their seals, and at this point, he'll have to use brute force. He says she has stamina potions and energy potions in her bag. He might need them later, and tells her to step back and hide behind something sturdy. Sakura replies yes. The protagonist crouches while releasing lightning. The supervisor notices something, and the beastmen outside ask what's happening. Tsuyoshi says he's going to break all the seals at once. Sakura thinks even she is impressed by her master's intensity. More notifications appear due to insufficient level and conditions. He cannot fully release the power of the Divine King's hammer. Forcing the release will consume vast amounts of energy, lasting only for the duration of release. Tsuki keeps releasing lightning, saying 1 second is all he needs. A great energy is unleashed from the sky. The astonished supervisor asks if this is human power. Meanwhile, inside, Shiro continues unleashing his power, and Sakura thinks she wouldn't have believed such a terrifying presence if she hadn't seen it with her own eyes. The system notifies, Divine King's hammer activated. The protagonist slams his hand on the ground as lightning bursts out, saying he'll break all the seals on these scrolls at once. Outside, the supervisor stares, impressed by the extremely bright light being emitted. Tsuyoshi continues on the ground, unleashing his incredible and overwhelming power. The seals on the scrolls shatter as the lightning strikes them. Sakura says all the seals on the skill scrolls were broken in an instant. The system notifies that the deactivation of the Divine King's hammer has been completed. Tsuki realizes he did it. The time remaining is 50 seconds. Shiro thinks the scroll information is pouring in, while Sakura realizes the invisible information flooding in is so massive it distorts space. If he perceives so much at once, his brain won't be able to handle it. She tells her master to wait. The protagonist feels his head splitting apart and thinks he saw everything, that he should be given the strongest skill, the one that suits him best. With 40 seconds left, Tsuyoshi sees that this isn't good, that it's not enough, and that he needs something stronger. A scroll nearby crackles with lightning around it. With 30 seconds left, Sakura warns that time is running out. Tsuki decides that since it caught his attention, that's the one, and tells her to grab the scroll on the lower shelf, third from the top in the farthest corridor. Sakura quickly moves, leaping, thinking lower shelf, third from the top, this must be it. She takes it and wonders if it's a fragmented scroll, as there must be some mistake. The system notifies fragmented scroll. These are scrolls missing parts for some reason. The user must collect the remaining fragments to complete it. Generally, fragmented scrolls have incomplete content and greatly reduce skill power. Sakura asks if he's sure, telling him this is a fragmented scroll. They're out of time, and she calls him to get out. With only 10 seconds left, Shiro picks her up in his arms, saying he can last a little longer before leaving. Outside, the supervisor notes it's gone quiet. Only 5 seconds remain. Even if he hasn't found a scroll, when the time expires, he'll be sent out. The countdown begins. 3, 2. The door bursts open, unleashing immense pressure. The protagonist emerges carrying his partner and says he finished just in time. Sakura steps down from his arms, and the supervisor says he brought out a fragmented scroll. The system notifies combat magic. The user summons a powerful electric current that deals lightning damage. It circulates between 3 targets and is suitable for warriors and mages. First, it strikes the primary target with a powerful bolt, then calls down lightning from the sky. It automatically chains to the next target, leaving them paralyzed after suffering lightning damage, the most potent force of nature. It demands exceptional skill from the user, and its use is forbidden for those without mastery. The supervisor says he heard from his predecessor that in the last 1,000 years, almost no one has attempted to learn this fragmented skill. There are 2 reasons. First, this skill is divided into 6 volumes, and only 3 have ever been found. Collecting the rest without any clue in this vast world is unrealistic. Second, every beast man who tried to learn it in the past lost their life from backlash as they leveled up. Their bodies exploded, ending in horrific deaths because they couldn't control the skill's power. Tsuyoshi says working hard to gather the remaining fragments only to explode in the end. Has no one ever fully mastered this skill? The commander says there was one. 1,000 years ago, the strongest Beastman King, known as the Divine King. He was also the bearer of the sacred artifact, the Divine King's Hammer. This is the only skill the Divine King left behind in that era. Tsuki asks about a skill left behind by the bearer of the Divine King's Hammer, and why such a powerful skill would be thrown away like trash. The commander asks if he's mocking him, if this is some kind of joke. He says no matter how powerful a skill is, it means nothing if no one can wield it. Just like a superior weapon is useless in the hands of someone who can't swing it. Although this skill was left behind by the great Divine King, few believe it still exists, for no one has mastered it in a millennium. Like the old glory of the Beastmen, it will never return. Shiro raises the scroll and says, so be it. It might be perfect for him, and calls his partner to leave. The commander says that fragment is just the beginning. Whether he can obtain the remaining fragments, whether he can master the skill completely, depends on his own strength and luck. Then he looks at her, asking if she's the half-beast who should have been executed, how she dares walk among beastmen, saying that human probably doesn't even know her true identity yet, and asking if she intends to sacrifice him as well. Sakura lowers her head and replies that it's none of his business. The commander watches her and says he'll see how far she can go. Inside the inn, the protagonist says her healing potion is incredibly effective, but the taste is terrible. The wound was completely healed thanks to the potion, and Tsuyoshi asks how the hell she made it, saying she's been acting strangely since she came back and asks if she's alright. Sakura answers that she is, she's just a little tired. Tsuki says he's curious. She was also supposed to be executed, and asks if it was because of her story that she was next. Sakura tries to change the subject, saying they shouldn't talk about unpleasant things anymore, and asks if he studied the scroll he got. Shiro replies that he memorized it earlier. That old beast man said some strange things, but it seems perfect for him. He thinks Lightning Chain requires a strong body, and it's more than suitable for himself, who has the strongest body. He can't wait to see what this skill will do once he gathers the remaining scrolls. Sakura says that's excellent and tells him to go now, saying it's a beautiful day. It seems like a good day to level up. The protagonist says she's right, but before that, there's something he has to do. The system notifies that the cooldown of the ring without limits has ended. Unlimited passage available. Unlimited passage activation complete. Tsuyoshi thinks that when he learned this skill, he discovered how to deal with those 3 and says he told them to remember him. He'll eliminate them for sure. Lightning bursts out and Tsuki returns to his world. He thinks that before he starts attacking, he must break their stance, and to activate his new skill, he needs a weapon. He's glad to have the inventory of Divine Consciousness. The system notifies Divine Consciousness inventory activated and 1 item was withdrawn. Shiro thinks that with his skill, he activates the black freeze flash and the sword is taken. The mage asks if he pulled that sword out of the air, if he has a dimensional storage. Gaia says he definitely has some secrets. That sword looks like a high-quality item too, and he'll take it. The bald bandit says to kill him first, they can split the loot later. The protagonist says they were the ones who started this fight. Tsuyoshi raises his sword and the mage says he really is a warrior, asking what that overwhelming aura is. Tsuki slashes with his sword, extremely powerful, releasing intense lightning. The enemies stare in fear until the bolt strikes them. The bandit asks how that guy can use such a high-level magic. They're all paralyzed and Shiro approaches them. The mage thinks they underestimated him, that he's completely different compared to before and wonders what the hell is going on. He also thinks it's frustrating, but it's better if they run. The bandit begs to wait, saying they surrender. Without hesitation, the protagonist punches him and asks if he really thought he'd forgive someone who tried to kill him, telling him not to make him laugh. Gaia asks if he doesn't realize they're crazy wolf and tells him to let them go. Tsuyoshi strikes him and tells him to shut up and die silently. The mage thinks he's showing no mercy, realizing he would be finished if he let them escape. Tsuki says he's next. The bald one asks if he thinks he should be killed just like that. The mage throws an explosive fruit and the system notifies. Sticky explosive fruit. These fruits attach to a target and explode. Even small, they're powerful and can cause massive damage, which is why they're rare and expensive. Shiro blocks with his sword and the bald man tells him to die and explode. Enormous explosions erupt, and the excited mage says he bought those fruits with a lifetime savings. Even a level 12 hero would take damage, and if he's only level 10, the blast has enough firepower to tear his body to pieces. He's 10 years too early to fight them. In the middle of the smoke, the protagonist is still alive. The bald man can't believe it and asks what the hell that strength is. Tsuyoshi says if not for his peak physique, he would have been finished for sure. The system notifies that the Black Goblin's set and peak physique have been activated. Tsuki glares at him, moves swiftly, determined to end the three of them, and strikes with overwhelming power, causing a massive impact. He asks if they really think he'd feel safe leaving them alive. Afterwards, still in the same place, Shiro picks up the sword and says, "They're members of MANHWA." All of this happened because he's still at a low level. Such a disgusting world where the weak are devoured. Then, the protagonist notices something and asks what that is. He approaches and realizes it's a ring. The system reveals the details. Dimensional ring, forged with a special material, it allows the user to have a dimensional space. The size of the space varies according to the level of the ring. Tsuyoshi puts on the ring and says, "This really is a dimensional ring." More notifications appear explaining that to use it, he must infuse mana into it. Tsuki gets excited, saying a hero normally wouldn't even get the chance to lay hands on a dimensional ring. Besides the price, it's hard to find one on the market, and he's going to try. Shiro channels mana into the ring and asks if it's activating now, realizing the ring is still new. The system notifies, first activation of the dimensional ring successful. The ring is syncing with his mana. The protagonist says no way, it's helped him ever since this happened, and thanks for the loot. In the same place, the hero security forces arrive, and Tsuyoshi is glad he left early. The system notifies Hero Security Force, created under the authority of the Hero Alliance. Tsuki thinks he erased his tracks carefully, and since they already took everything valuable, they shouldn't be able to trace anything back to him. He says at least he's safe for now. This new smartphone he got from Gaia is really impressive. After linking his information code to the device, it's basically his. His smartphone rings and Shiro panics, wondering who would be calling at a time like this. He answers and realizes it's his high school teacher. The teacher says he still hasn't been coming to school, even though winter break ended over a week ago. She understands he wanted to leave school because of his sister and knows the financial situation might be hard, but she doesn't want to see a student drop out. The protagonist thanks her and says money isn't the only problem, thinking he always hated school and she must know that. The teacher says she understands, but he can change his life if he doesn't quit studying. She'll try to do something about the tuition so he won't have to worry. She tells him to be brave and come to school tomorrow. He can't just work as a janitor for his sister and for his own future. Tsuyoshi thinks she still doesn't know he's already a hero now. She's the only person who's always worried about him. The teacher also says he's a strong boy, not to run away from problems and to keep studying. He can become as strong as possible for his sister and for himself. Tsuki thinks he thought he never wanted to go back to school because he had no happy memories there. But after talking with Sensei, he realizes he's a hero now. He's not the same helpless kid who was bullied. He'll make those bullies bow their heads. He thanks her, saying he'll go to school tomorrow. Elsewhere, a voice says 3 people were finished off by an unknown hero and their items were looted, including the dimensional ring entrusted to them. A man with several rings on his fingers slams the table, saying they didn't even realize a tracking spell had already been cast on that ring. Tracking magic is used to locate the approximate position of a marked item. The man says he already knows where it is and he won't let him live after robbing Crazy Wolf. This is the guild leader who orders his underlings to bring that thief to him. They reply that they understand. The next morning, Shiro asks how the devices are. Karina, with her crutch, says she's fine. As long as she walks slowly, he doesn't need to worry. The protagonist says she's stubborn, that they won't rush and will take it slow. He thinks that once she heard he'd return to school, she insisted on coming too, saying she didn't want to be a burden. He managed to buy it with the money he got from those 3, but now he's broke again. He can't sell this dimensional ring. He'll have plenty of opportunities as a hero. Looking at his sister's expression, he thinks it was all worth it and tells her to take it slow and not walk around too much after class. He'll walk her down himself and promises he'll take care of her. Inside the classroom, the school bully asks who that girl was using canes and strange tools to walk. Her partner asks if she means Karina and explains that she was attacked by the darkness, lost her parents, and both her legs were injured. The bully asks if that's true, says she became disabled after experiencing poverty, that she's a pitiful soul. Her partner says that incident was in the newspaper. Even the teachers talked about it. The bully says, wouldn't it be better if poor people in the slums were just wiped out? That it's a waste of resources for the news to cover her, and that she's been irritated for a while by her acting all pure and innocent. Her partner asks if she's planning to bully her again, reminding her that she's disabled and asking if that won't be bad if the school finds out. The bully asks what's wrong with bullying the disabled, saying no one dared to speak up when she bullied before, it should be the same now, and she already has something interesting in mind. The bully walks off, calling her partner to come along since she still has to meet her boyfriend. In the vice principal's office, a voice says he should be grateful to Lily. If she hadn't asked, he wouldn't have allowed him to keep attending school. It's the vice principal who also says he shouldn't treat his studies this way and asks what he thinks a school is. The teacher replies that she knows that's the case, but he has his own circumstances, and she already arranged it. The tuition has been paid and she'll make sure he gets the credits he needs for graduation. The protagonist thanks her and apologizes for causing trouble. They leave the room while the vice principal watches her hips, thinking he doesn't really care about the student. He's only interested in her and that she really needs a lover like him. In the hallway, the teacher says she also covered his sister's tuition, so he doesn't need to worry. The two of them are strong children. Tsuyoshi apologizes for making her worry so much, saying he'll definitely repay the money. Lily says they can talk about that later. He's already in his third year now, so he should prepare for the exams. Besides, he's much brighter compared to before, and she's happy about it. Tsuki says he's been doing his best lately and will meet her expectations. He thinks about apologizing for not telling her that he's a hero now. The matter with Crazy Wolf still isn't resolved, so he has to be careful, but at least he wants to show he's not the same person he used to be. The teacher tells him to hurry and go to class because the subject now is art. In classroom 3, Shiro enters. A slacker student watches him and says he thought he'd been expelled, but here he is back again. His partner in front asks if they should take him to the bathroom again after class. Rayleigh says of course, and that while he was gone, the protection fee money was already collected. He asks if he thought they'd show sympathy for his family's situation and says he should pity himself since he doesn't even have money to enjoy karaoke. San, holding a small paper ball, throws it at the protagonist, saying he'll remind him first of the feeling of being hit. The ball bounces, but Tsuyoshi catches it, stopping it from hitting him. The two of them stare, shocked and confused, asking if he just caught it. Tsuki stays still until he turns and tells him to come to the bathroom later. Rayleigh asks if he heard right, saying he's actually inviting them to the bathroom. That bastard's getting bold just because he hasn't seen him in a while. He'll make him feel some pain. Then the bell rings. At the bathroom door, someone says San is using this one now and they should go elsewhere. Inside, Rayleigh says he was picking up trash after leaving school and asks if he became a janitor. Then asks about the protection fee. His partner says to hand over the money, or else. Shiro interrupts, asking, "Or else what?" The pressure in the room grows tense. San tells him to stop joking, he'll beat him. The big one says they've been waiting for those words, while the other rolls up his sleeves, saying he's finished now. The protagonist grabs both their arms, thinking he's incredibly strong now, and wonders if he really got this powerful so fast. He doesn't even feel fear anymore. Before, he never had the courage to defend himself, but now he's different. Tsuyoshi activates his skill, Divine Eye activated, and sees the three are classless, with no combat power, not even a threat. They try to kick him, shouting to let them go, but Tsuki attacks first, knocking them to the ground. Rayleigh watches his partners fall, wondering what the hell is happening. Why that weakling suddenly seems like a completely different person. Then the boy at the door warns that the boss is coming and they should run. San helps his partners up, glaring furiously before leaving. Shiro thinks that look shows taking a kick wasn't enough, and he's glad he held back. If he had used peak physique along with those kicks, they'd already be finished. In another room, a voice says she'll cause more trouble and apologizes to Haru. The person replies it's fine and to just call if anything is needed. A girl in front hands books to Karina until someone strikes her. Her partner says Karina's body is disabled now, but Mina mercilessly says if she speaks again, she'll slap her face next. A girl nearby trembles. The bully says Karina hasn't come to school for a long time, and during that time she had no servant around, which was quite annoying, and asks how she's going to make up for it. Karina, frightened, hesitates to speak. Mina asks about money and whether those things on her legs aren't sellable. Karina asks if she means the device and says no. Her older brother did everything he could to buy it for her, so it's very important to her. The two bullies stare without pity, and the ringleader asks if it's really that important to her, saying that without it, she can't even walk. Karina answers yes, it's important. Mina shoves her and leaves when she sees the teacher arriving, who says class is starting and they should return to their seats. The bully mutters that the teacher came right then, and it's the 6th period already, warning her not to dare go straight home after school because their talk isn't finished. The teacher begins her lesson while Karina, head down, thinks she has to run the moment class ends. She can't wait to see her big brother, and she has to make sure not to run into Mina and the others, planning to take the back gate. In her brother's classroom, Lily closes the book and says today's lesson ends here, reminding everyone to be careful on their way home. They stand up. The teacher asks Tsuyoshi if she may, and he says yes, asking if it's about class. Lily asks if he's gotten used to school again after being absent for so long and wonders if there's anything she can do to help him today. Suki says he's fine and thanks her. The teacher says she's glad that's the case, and instead of being afraid like before, he should be sure to tell her if he's bullied. Shiro says he's doing very well and thanks her. Lily says she's really happy he's adjusting back to school and reminds him again to say something if anything happens. He should go home now. The protagonist says goodbye to her until someone calls him. It's the bully from before, saying he wants to apologize for the bathroom incident and asks if they can talk somewhere else. Tsuyoshi asks where and the bully guides him, saying it's right there. He just wants to apologize in private. When they arrive, someone hidden jumps out with something in hand to strike him. Loud cracks sound and the bully tells his partner not to overdo it. The system notifies, skill activated. Tsuki breaks the wood in their hands. The one knocked to the ground asks if he stopped it. Shiro says he knew they were planning something shady, but didn't expect it to be this low. The protagonist kicks him again, then hits the others around him with his powerful strikes. The big guy collapses with foam at his mouth, and Tsuyoshi says he hasn't learned his lesson, their failures. Rayleigh charges with a club to strike him, and Suki says if this weren't at school, he'd be finished. San, holding the club raised, freezes. His hands won't move. He wonders if he's afraid of him. Shiro strikes him down, saying he's late to pick up his sister now, and that they're lucky the law of heroes forbids a hero from killing civilians. In the corridor toward the back gate, Karina walks slowly, exhausted, thinking she has to avoid the bully by taking the back gate. She'll circle back to the front afterward. When she reaches the stairs, she thinks it's still frightening to go down them and tells herself to stay calm and take it slowly until someone pushes her. Karina's belongings scatter and she falls hard to the ground. Mina says she fell, mocking her for thinking she could escape through the back gate, that they knew she'd come here, and they'll take those things off her legs. Karina, injured on the ground, begs them to stop, not to take her device. The bully asks if she realizes she won't escape easily if they remove that device themselves. At the front gate, the protagonist wonders why his sister hasn't arrived yet. He thinks her class ended earlier, but they said she already left. Then someone approaches, asking if he's Karina's older brother. Tsuyoshi says yes and asks if she knows where she is, since they were supposed to go home together. The girl says she thinks Karina went out through the back gate and asks why he doesn't check himself. Suki starts walking, wondering why his sister would be at the back gate, thinking something must have happened. Haru acted strangely. She seems scared of something. Either way, he has to find her, and he'll need to take the stairs to reach the back gate. Shiro wonders if she really would have gone there, until he spots something, and it's his sister lying on the ground. The protagonist keeps staring until Karina lifts her head, her face badly bruised, and asks why her brother is there. Tsuyoshi activates the Divine Eye and begins analyzing her injuries, showing that the forehead wounds were caused by punches, the bruises on her cheeks by repeated slaps, the marks on her arms by pinches, the ones on her stomach by kicks, and the injuries on her waist also by kicks. Karina still insists it was her fault for falling down the stairs, and the system notifies multiple hemorrhages detected on the target's body. Suki asks if she really fell and says it must hurt. He imagines his sister being beaten, and Karina apologizes for not being able to go down the stairs and for her cane being broken. Shiro also imagines her taking pinches and kicks and begins picking up her belongings scattered on the ground. Karina says she didn't want to cause him trouble, but the cane is broken and she can't stand up. The protagonist says they are family, so there's no such thing as a burden, and it must have hurt to fall like that. His sister says she's fine, and he doesn't need to worry, and asks about the device. If they're still intact, Tsuyoshi checks and says they are. Karina says she's glad. Suki picks her up and tells her they're going home. He walks with her in his arms, looking at the sky, and asks if she remembers when he carried her like this that day. He can feel how much she's grown. It was long ago, Karina agrees, and says it feels like yesterday. Since that day, they've always been together. Shiro says she's the only person he has, and since then, he wanted to become stronger to protect her. Back then, he was completely powerless, but now he's a hero and won't let her go through the same thing twice. Karina says she knows he always does his best, and that's why she doesn't want to be a burden. The protagonist sets her down and says she's repeating that again, but they're family and she knows it and tells her to wait there a little while because he'll be back soon. His sister asks where he's going, and Tsuyoshi answers that he has to take care of something he forgot. She asks what he forgot. Suki walks off with plasma in his eyes. In another room, Mina says it was good that Karina tried to desperately protect her legs while being kicked, also complaining it's annoying they couldn't rip those devices off her legs, that they could sell them for money, and she's going to make sure to steal them. Billy asks if they're really sellable, and Mina says not to worry, she'll have an answer by tomorrow. The blonde says Karina's older brother just came back to school and wonders if that'll be a problem. She heard he was expelled and became a janitor. Mina scoffs about janitor, saying he's trash. So both the cripple and the trash are family, and it's shameful to be in the same school as them. The blonde adds that Karina used to be quite popular before her legs were broken. Many boys liked her. She was pretty, smart, and stylish. Billy asks about pretty and stylish and says he wants to see her now. Mina snaps at him for saying that in front of her, but her boyfriend steps in and tells her not to be angry. It doesn't mean anything. The bully says after they steal Karina's device tomorrow, they'll have fun together once they sell it. Billy replies fine. It's an easy target against a crippled girl. Shiro enters the room and they all look up. Billy asks who dares come in. The protagonist says so she's the one who hurt his sister, and she claims she fell down the stairs. The blonde asks if he's Karina's brother. Mina asks if he's planning to take revenge and says he came at the wrong time. Billy asks if he's the trash man, a third-year student he's never heard of, and says his girlfriend was only playing with his sister. Tsuyoshi asks if that means he decided to push a crippled girl and send her tumbling down the stairs. Billy asks if he has a complaint and whether he was apologizing. Mina says it's easier to make him understand the situation, and how dare a trash man like him waste their time. When Billy moves to attack, Tsuki blocks him, breaking the big guy's finger, making him scream and ask how he dares. The girls cry out to wait, asking what just happened. Shiro says it wasn't just him and he won't let any of them escape. The protagonist uses the divine eye and sees they have no class, no combat power, no threat at all. Mina asks what he's doing. Tsuyoshi replies that he thought she might be a hero since she acts so bossy, but it looks like she's just bullying people for no reason. Billy groans in pain, clutching his fingers, and asks if he even knows who his father is. His girlfriend asks if he's okay. The blonde says she'll give him credit for being brave enough to come alone. They may not be heroes, but they're not the type he should mess with. Until Tsuki strikes her too, throwing her to the ground and asks if she really thinks he wouldn't dare hit a woman. Mina looks at her friend Vivian and thinks this is way too fast. Not even sports students have that kind of speed and wonders what the hell is going on. Billy tries to speak again, but Shiro rushes at the bully girl, saying he doesn't see the two of them as women. Billy tries to say something, but the protagonist punches him in the mouth, breaking his teeth, and says he'll deal with him later and now he can shut up. Mina worries about her boyfriend until Tsuyoshi grabs her by the neck and pushes her against the wall. The bully girl begs him to wait and let go. Tsuki says that from what he heard, she took the initiative to bully his sister, and now she better listen properly. That he, as her brother, will never forgive her for what she did. Shiro keeps choking her harder and angrier and says from now on she is to stay away from his sister. He doesn't expect her to apologize, but to make sure she keeps her distance. And if not next time, he'll twist her head off, and he's serious, asking if she understands. Mina answers yes. The protagonist lets go and says, that's good. Then asks the big guy if he's this girl's boyfriend, and if he still wants to bully his sister. Tsuyoshi picks up a ruler from the ground and says that even with something simple like a ruler, it should be enough to finish trash like him. Billy begs him to wait. Tsuki says just thinking about what he said makes him sick, and he could have eliminated him if he were a hero. Billy, injured, asks if he knows who he is, saying he's the son of the Blue Snake gang leader and his father is a level 10 hero. Shiro asks about the Blue Snake gang and if that's the same ones they owed money to for his sister's hospital bill, because those people said the same thing when they came to the hospital, and says, it's funny how often he runs into people he hates. The protagonist releases lightning. Billy, shocked, asks about abilities, and if he's a hero, Tsuyoshi strikes him with his powerful lightning, and the system warns that if the proper weapon isn't used, the damage is reduced by 90% and total damage isn't dealt. Tsuki walks away saying that amount of pain should be enough for him. Shiro picks up his bag and says not to forget this is the first and last chance to keep the promise. He can apologize, but he'll also have to clean the classroom. Billy, badly injured, asks if he left. Mina asks if he's okay and says they should go to the hospital. Her boyfriend answers, no, he just needs to rest and didn't know he was a hero. The bully girl asks what he's going to do, and if this isn't over, pointing at the scar on her neck and saying she'll make him pay for it. Billy tells her not to tell him what to do, that he'll make him pay. He'll make him pay by talking to his father. The bully girl agrees, and says he should tell his father who made him mad. Billy says he'll ask his father and then wipe him and his sister off the face of the earth. Outside, Karina is sitting on the ground hoping her brother is okay, saying if she could take care of herself, she wouldn't trouble him. She doesn't want to make him worry even more now that he's a hero, until someone calls her. She's startled, but it's the protagonist apologizing for making her wait and telling her to go home with him, carrying her on his back while his sister says she'll carry the bags. Tsuyoshi walks thinking so the young leader of the Blue Snake gang is a level 10 hero and Billy's father. And of course the boy will cry to his father and try to strike back at them. But he's ready. There are many of them and he can't afford to lower his guard. It's time to return to the other world and he won't let them hurt his sister again. In the other world, Sakura says they've reached the north. And there is what he needs to know. Upon reaching the city, he can take part in an official mission and must register at the Adventurers Guild. In the city, he can also find a tavern, a blacksmith, and a tool shop. Tsuki says that's exactly what he needs. He wanted to gain war experience. It feels like a fun game. He's going there and can't wait. In the city, Shiro says, it's amazing seeing so many different Beastman tribes. His partner says that looking at these Beastmen, there are many rare tribes there, each with its own specialty. The protagonist asks if those are human adventurers. Sakura asks if they're like the ones from his homeworld and says that in a big city with a guild, there are many different tribes. There's also a rule that says he should avoid fights that could cost lives outside the arena, but still the North is a Beastman city, and of course there are many Beastmen there. Although the highly proud elves and the noble Beastmen are quite rare there, Tsuyoshi asks if that's interesting and says this is the first time he's seen another human, a fellow human, since arriving there. He can already feel the bond until Sakura notices that her master is already there talking to people and yells that he can't just suddenly run off like that. The two armed people ask who he is and tell him not to get too close. Tsuki asks if there's some rule about greetings. Sakura says it's a misunderstanding. The two comment on the strange feeling and walk away. Sakura says it seems he shouldn't talk to adventurers around the city. He'll only make them cautious. Most adventurers, especially humans, are wary of their surroundings. Shiro says he understands. There are many rules in this world. It seems everyone is whispering around. Sakura lowers her head and apologizes, saying it's because she is half Beastman and they hate hybrids. Then tells him to go get registered at the Adventurer Guild. The protagonist says it's better they just leave them alone. Discrimination exists everywhere, so she doesn't need to think about it and calls her to come along. Sakura takes his hand and they move together. Arriving at a shop, Tsuyoshi asks if it's like in anime games and says it's a mission board. Sakura says they can't accept any of those missions until they register. They go inside. Sakura says they're there to register as adventurers. The woman asks if it's a group of a half-breed and a human and says that's interesting, and asks which of them wants to register. Tsuki says they're different compared to those outside staring at them. He's already seen an inconsistent number of adventurers, so it's nothing new to him, the clerk says, to write down the information there. Name and class. The information is shared across the whole Adventurer Guild, so next time he can take missions even in other branches. Shiro says it was written on an official document. Sakura says what matters isn't the paper, but the registration. Otherwise, he can't get an adventurer badge. The protagonist asks about an adventurer badge. Sakura answers yes. It's the adventurer's ID. Starting with the lowest rank, the Iron Badge, the higher the rank, the greater the merits and rewards, and he should do his best to gain experience. The clerk explains the lowest ranks start at Iron, then Bronze, Silver, and Gold, but only a few with Gold rank wander the guild. Those strong adventurers usually only take missions from the rich. Tsuyoshi says the lowest badge rank isn't that impressive. The clerk says once he gets the badge, his level will automatically be determined, and he can hide it with the badge. Tsuki says that's amazing and asks how it works. Sakura says it's linked to the adventurer badge and he can hide it just by thought but must remember the method. Shiro asks about thought, and if it's like this, the protagonist thanks the divine selection system and thinks it's easy. The clerk is impressed and says it's rare for someone to do it in one try. This method is known to be hard for beginners. A Beastman shoves him aside and tells him to get out of the way. They place something on the counter and say they're reporting a mission completed and ask if there are other missions. If not, they'll grab a drink together and it's on her. The clerk says unfortunately she's busy. There's an emergency request. Though the reward is high, the difficulty is high too. The requester wanted at least a level 15 adventurer and asks if they can handle it. They ask if there's something around level 10 and what kind of request it is. The clerk says a large number of carnivorous darkness creatures are troubling farmers. A group of 3 also accepted this request, but they were badly injured and 1 is still missing. Their levels were higher than his. The Beastman asks about level 10 carnivorous darkness, and if it's a pack, his partner says they're not doing it. That kind of request needs level 20 or above. Tsuyoshi grabs the scroll and says they'll accept, and that he's on his way. The Beastman asks what he said and if he knows what would happen to him if he drew a weapon inside the guild, tells him not to underestimate it. If he values his life, it's better not to accept that request. Tsuki says he just registered, and since he can't do it, he better shut up, and asks if he wants to test his combat ability in the arena, thinking that with the help of the divine selection system, he can defeat a level 9 Beastman in a one-on-one match. The Beastman says he should know his place, even if their own badges are still iron. They've gained a lot of mission experience and asks if his iron badge is still new, saying he'll be laughed at if the client rejects him. The clerk says she praises his courage, but at his current level it's possible the client will refuse him. The Beastman asks if he heard that and tells him to start from the bottom. Chasing a runaway dog would be better for him. Sakura answers, no, they'll do this request. They're surprised to hear that, and the Beast Man says his companion is a half-breed and asks if she can back up such a bold claim. Sakura shows her gold badge and asks if that's enough proof. The Beast Men look shocked, and Shiro wonders if she really has a gold badge. The clerk says she should have said that from the start and will entrust the request to her, betting the client will be pleased. The protagonist says now he's running away. Sakura says this request will help his level progression. Tsuyoshi agrees and says they'll do it. The clerk wonders why a gold-ranked adventurer is calling a boy master and who he really is. Thinking it's interesting, later Sakura says the farm where numerous carnivorous darkness creatures reside should be nearby. Tsuki says he didn't know she had a gold badge. Sakura says she joined the Adventurer Guild when she was young and completed many missions and requests with different groups. After that, she realized she met the requirement for a gold badge and went to upgrade it, asking if that's strange. Shiro thinks she's been active in the guild since young and it must have been tough. Anne tells her she's amazing. Sakura blushes and thanks him. After walking for a while, they arrive at the place and say their opponents look strong. The monsters are level 10. The protagonist observes and says, it's a pack of level 10 carnivorous darkness and wonders how many are inside that building. They're disgusting. Sakura says they are darkness after all. They corrupt all living things, making them furious and stronger. Low-level creatures even lose their intelligence. They're the same as those dark goblins. This carnivorous darkness corrupted slimes into darkness. Tsuyoshi says so. They were slimes before, and no wonder they're so vicious. So these carnivorous darkness are just dark slimes. They're dangerous because only lightning element attacks work on them, so his chain thunderfall is the best option, and tells her to just watch from the side as usual. He readies himself for battle thinking. He brought his weapon for the chance to level up. Sakura pulls him and says he shouldn't try to do that kind of thing alone anymore. Tsuki asks why. His partner answers, this is a fight that could cost him his life. It's a completely different area compared to beginner zones. Maybe he can handle one-on-one, but what if it's a whole pack? And asks again if he remembers the expression of that group after hearing the request details. Sakura also says they know it's dangerous. It's not unusual for an adventurer to lose their life anytime. After all, it's part of the job. She doesn't want him risking his life just to level up, and tells him at least let her accompany him during the fight. Shiro says he understands. By the way, he has 2 questions for her. Thinking it's about his level, he's just planning to raise it to prepare for anything that might happen in his world. Sakura asks what's the problem, and says if she knows she'll answer. The protagonist thinks she should remember the promise made by the Beastman King. A trial awaits after a year and says he doesn't know how strong the king is. So his first question is this. He doesn't know how strong he must be to prove his strength and skill after a year. Sakura looks at him and says honestly it's impossible for him to pass the trial. After just 1 year starting at this level, it's impossible. Tsuyoshi asked why impossible. Sakura answers first of all it's already an achievement. If he stays alive until next year, at minimum, he must avoid being killed by the divine judgment of the Beastmen, and asks if he knows the rule related to the level system. Tsuki asks her to explain, thinking he knows both worlds share the same level system, and the higher his adventurer combat level here, the stronger his combat abilities as a hero in his world. But beyond that, he knows nothing else. Shiro says the level limit for adventurers is 100, and the current Beastman King is at level 92. The reason the Beastman King reached that position is because of his unmatched combat skills and high level. Beastman King, Human King, and Elven King. The kings of the races symbolize the peak of power. The protagonist says he didn't seem that strong to be the symbol of the Beastmen's power. Sakura says the reason she said it's impossible for him to pass the Beastman King's trial is because there's a limit to how much someone can grow. To put it simply, there's a point where an adventurer can no longer get stronger. The higher the level, the harder it is to level up, and he can see her as an example. She's been an adventurer for more than 20 years, but is still only level 72. She knows 72 isn't low, but she's tried many times to increase her level and failed. This is her level cap. Everyone has their own limit. So for him to pass the Beast King's trial is too much. At minimum, he would need to reach level 50. No matter how you look at it, it's impossible for him to raise his level that high in a single year. A normal adventurer would need their entire life just to reach level 50. Tsuyoshi looks at her and says he understands her concern. Sakura asks if he's really fine and says at least she'll accompany him while he does his best this coming year, even if he can't fulfill the promise with the Beast King. Tsuki says she knows he's not a normal adventurer. He stood back up after receiving divine judgment and lifted the Divine King's hammer. She knows that's not normal. He'll be fine. As long as he can reach level 50 in a year, even if it's impossible for others, it's probably within his reach. He thinks it's strange to say, but thanks to this ring, he's inside this world and even stood up after divine judgment and has this divine selection system. He is the chosen one and has to say goodbye to any normal path or fate. With this divine selection system, everything has become possible. Sakura calls him and says he was right. He will definitely become a legend, and she believes in him. Shiro says, "Let's go," and this is his second question. Sakura apologizes for talking too much. The protagonist wonders, if fighting a level 10 warrior along with dozens of underlings at the same time, what level he would need to reach at least. Sakura answers she doesn't know why he asked that, but based on that situation with so many enemies, he'd need to be at least level 12 to have the advantage. Tsuyoshi says level 12 and decides then he'll reach level 12 within about a week. The monster lets out a loud sound and Tsuki says to leave it to him and thinks he'll use his full ability from now on. He activates his divine eye. The system notifies of the main weakness, a slime core inside the body. After the main body is damaged, the core will glow and regenerate the damaged body. During this time, the core's location can be determined. Shiro thinks he understands. Although the elemental weakness is lightning, the core also counts as a weakness. At his current level, using Chain Thunderfall directly on the core is the best option to win. First, he has to find where the core is located. Sakura says if he hits it with the attack, it may corrupt the body part it touches. The protagonist rushes to attack and says he found it, thinking with his supreme physique he can withstand attacks. Tsuyoshi slashes with his sword and wonders if the core is located in its chest. After Tsuki lands, he realizes the opponent already recovered. Its regeneration speed is terrifying. The monster charges, opening its huge mouth to devour him. Shiro blocks with his sword and asks if it plans to eat him, saying it chose the wrong opponent. The system notifies supreme physique, arm strength increased. The protagonist says it's like an insect flying into fire. Tsuyoshi rips the monster's mouth apart. Sakura is shocked and thinks his power is immense. Maybe exactly as he said, he's a man who makes the impossible possible. The monster screams in pain and Tsuki says he finally found it under its tongue. Now it can taste the power of thunder. Shiro uses his Chain Thunderfall technique. The monster is eliminated and the core falls to the ground. The protagonist sighs and says this request will be easy. 30 minutes later, several monsters are eliminated and Tsuyoshi says almost all the carnivorous darkness outside is cleared. He thinks it's just as his partner said, the experience requirement to level up increases the higher his level. The XP from such weak mobs becomes insignificant. The gains from these monsters are inferior compared to the average. He has to at least rethink his plan on how to level up quickly. It's faster compared to the rate in his world, but still far from his goal. He must reach level 12 in less than a week and then reach level 20 within a year. He has to do his best to achieve it. And by the way, she has a thunder ointment. Sakura takes out thunder oil and says it was a good job. And there are 4 left. She prepared them for both so he can use them as he wishes. Tsuki says that's just like her, and that he bought thunder oil from the item seller before they arrived there, and asks if it's expensive, saying they'll stock up on oil-based items next time. The fire oil they used last time was also convenient. Sakura says he doesn't have money and explains the current financial situation. That kind of item isn't cheap. She spent all the money she had to buy these items and apologizes. Shiro says it's nothing she should apologize for, and asks how much each costs and what about the reward for this request, saying he'll try to do something about it and asks her to explain as simply as possible. He hadn't considered finances. He thinks he's been focusing on leveling up and completely forgetting that money is also important in this world. Even if she spent all her savings, she probably wouldn't say anything. Sakura explains the price differs depending on the items, like thunder oil, which is rare, and for low-level missions or requests, the reward also varies, like with the items he's looking for. But the reward from a low-level guild mission isn't even 1 gold coin. That's why people make personal requests to adventurers when they lose items. Generally, if it's a trash cleaning request from crowds, the reward would be around 50 silver coins to 3 gold coins. The current request to clear carnivorous darkness should pay 3 gold coins, and they're poor right now. Once they finish this request, the guild will calculate and grant the reward afterwards. The protagonist says she seems like a reliable wife, and the boss should be inside the food warehouse since he's the only one left. They'll finish this quickly. Sakura wishes him good luck until a voice asks who he is to enter the farm without permission. It's the owner of the place, who also asks if they're adventurers and what a human and a half are doing in his farm. Companions beside him say there's residue of thunder magic being used and ask if he exterminated the carnivorous darkness outside. The cat says impossible, especially done by a human and a half. That human looks weak. Exterminating carnivorous darkness with only one group is hard. Those people are also after it. The big guy says he understands and asks if he's also after Cardiolus, saying they already accepted this request and the Cardiolus drop will be theirs. The armored beast man says it seems the rumor about Cardiolus has already spread. Tsuyoshi asks what Cardiolus is and if he's the client, saying there's a misunderstanding. They receive this request from the guild. Sakura tells him to wait and asks about the Cardiolus drop from this boss. The beast man answers yes, indeed, he made a request to the guild but didn't expect them to come so soon, and asks if she doesn't know about the boss's drop here. The cat archer says since he doesn't know, he should leave it to them and step aside. No matter if he tries to interfere, when it comes to Cardiolus, they won't show mercy. Tsuki asks his partner what Cardiolus is, and she answers not to give up this request because that item is very valuable. Cardiolus is a rare drop from a dark boss. After being purified, it can be used to connect with a dark area, and the drop and XP rate inside a dark area is 10 times greater than in a normal one outside. Any adventurer wanting to level up wouldn't miss this chance. If it were sold at auction, it would cost around 100 gold coins before purification. After purification, at least 150 gold coins. Shiro asks if it's that expensive and says they must get it at all costs, thinking it's important for his goal. The farm owner tells them to stop and not fight and to stop causing more confusion, so they can resolve the misunderstanding. One part comes from the guild while the other comes through himself, and they can prove their worth through ability. The only thing left is that boss. Whoever defeats it will get the reward. Sakura says they'll go first and thinks she must get it, no matter what, for the sake of her master. The armed beast man asks why they should be allowed in first and says both groups only get one chance. It's given that they enter first because they were brought by the client himself. The farmer says he's right, he brought them there himself, so they can enter first. The armored beast man says they'll show their strength to this human trash and that half-blood. The jaguar archer says that although the dark boss is quite strong, the reward is high. They have only one chance and will go with 120% of their power. Sakura says it's a well-balanced party. A mage, an archer, a warrior, and a tank. If they work together perfectly, they'll definitely defeat the boss, and they lost their chance. The protagonist says, wait, he has a suggestion. What if he goes in alone first? He's a level 6 adventurer. If he loses, the group will give up the request and the reward, but if he defeats the boss, the reward is his. What do they think? They stare, not understanding, and the armored beast man says he should know his place. He would need to be at least level 18 to defeat that boss alone. The archer laughs and says his judgment has been clouded by a mere item and he has no objections. Tsuyoshi says it's decided. Sakura asks if he's sure because that boss is at least level 12 and possessed by darkness. It's not an enemy he can easily defeat even with thunder oil, as expected. Tsuki confidently tells her to trust him. Sakura says she believes in him. The archer laughs, saying it's fine for her to believe. The armored beast man says he can't wait to see him mercilessly finished off by the boss. Shiro asks, mercilessly finished off? Now they'll see if he's the one to eliminate mercilessly or not. The mage asks if it's just him, or if his aura changed completely. The protagonist enters and asks if this is the strong opponent his partner mentioned, saying he's interested in the item called Cardiolus. The level 14 monster is ahead. The archer watches horrified, asking if the dark boss is level 14 and if he doesn't think it's too big. The armored beast man says since it holds a Cardiolus, it must be at least level 23 otherwise. Sakura worries for her master. The archer says she should prepare to collect a corpse. He won't survive even 10 seconds. He's blinded by a mere Cardiolus. Sakura tells him to shut up. They fall silent. Tsuyoshi says in theory its weakness should be the same as normal carnivorous darkness, but he knows it's many times stronger than the ones outside. He won't be able to beat it the same way. The monster is terrifying and huge. Suki looks at it and says, if possible, he really didn't want to use this. The longer the fight drags, the more advantageous it is for it. Now he understands why they said that. He'll end it in 1 second. That's enough. The system notifies the Divine King's hammer has been taken from the Divine Consciousness inventory. Due to low level, he can't use the full power of the Divine King's hammer. Shiro thinks carnivorous darkness is weak to thunder. First, he'll strengthen his arms with Supreme Physique, then amplify his Chain Thunderfall with the Celestial Agitator and activate the hammer at the last moment. He can win. If he can't finish it with this strike, it will be dangerous since he'll be weakened afterward, but he'll make it happen. He'll get the item no matter what. The protagonist moves quickly, charging at the monster with the hammer, unleashing incredible power, causing an extremely strong impact. They notice immense power outside and ask what's happening. A massive explosion occurs, destroying everything around. Sakura wonders if he used that power again and thinks he'll be weakened after this. She calls for her master, worried. People ask what's going on and if it wasn't a bomb. The farm owner asks where they are and what about his food warehouse. Sakura searches for her master, thinking that was a powerful blow and the boss should have been destroyed from the inside. Tsuyoshi calls her while lying weakened on the ground and asks what this cardiolus they mentioned before is. The system notifies about unpurified cardiolus. Later, at the Adventurer Guild, the clerk says, "It ended so fast, and that's impressive. He works quickly. Here's the reward this time." As expected of a gold badge. She heard the part the client called "couldn't do anything." Sakura thanks and says it wasn't her but her master who defeated them. There was no way she could have beaten the final boss. The clerk says to stop joking since he couldn't do that. The boss was a massive level 14 carnivorous darkness, not something a novice adventurer at only level 6 could handle, and asks if he doesn't look completely exhausted. The clerk says no. She's sure it's because her master cleared it alone. He wore himself out physically and mentally, which caused the weakening of his attributes. The clerk says to stop with those jokes. No matter how she looks at it, there's no way he could have done that. The system notifies the weakness status has ended. The protagonist stands up relieved, thinking he expected the recoil of releasing the hammer's power for just 1 second to be that strong. It would have been dangerous without his partner, and asks if she learned anything about cardiolus. The clerk asks if he obtained the cardiolus and says if he were to auction it off, it would fetch a high price. And if he plans to sell it, there's a major venue in the city center. Sakura says they're not planning to sell and asks if the shaman guild in this city requires a referral, saying she wants to request purification. The clerk asks if he plans to use it and says he needs to ask the shamans for that. Certainly, cardiolus must be purified and infused with magic by a shaman to be usable. The guild is east of the city. She'll write a letter of referral for him. There should be a shaman exam in the coming days, so they might refuse, but with the letter he can try. Just wait. Sakura thanks her, and Tsuyoshi asks about the shaman exam and if even shamans have ranks. Sakura explains that shaman is an honorary title, and just like pharmacists and elf awakened, they do it through an exam and are divided into 6 ranks like the awakened. Only shamans can make certain medicines and items. Medicines and items made by high-level shamans are more effective, and the price is higher. Tsuki asks if shamans are a different kind of being than adventurers. Sakura answers yes. Shamans, pharmacists, and awakened usually don't participate in combat. They're considered a more noble existence compared to ordinary adventurers. They not only create valuable things, but also influence medicines and the level limits of adventurers. Shiro asks about the adventurer's level limit. Sakura explains that in the adventurer world there's a saying, fear a high-level shaman more than 10 high-level adventurers. Medicines and items made by shamans influence battle outcomes. Some medicines can help level up. Pharmacists and awakened are also highly sought after. There's a story of a level 80 warrior who angered a silver shaman. He summoned dozens of adventurers above level 80 to hunt him down. Imagine how that ended for the warrior. Since then, the world learned how terrifying and influential shamans are. The protagonist says he understands, and it's fascinating. The clerk hands them the letter of referral, saying with this, he should be able to enter the shaman guild and purify the cardiolus. They both thank her. At the shaman guild, Tsuyoshi says there are so many magicians there for the exam. His partner agrees and says on exam days, many people from prestigious families, schools, and specialized organizations come. She's heard it's hard to enter. Warriors look at them approaching. Sakura pulls him, saying they'll line up. With the Adventurer Guild's letter of referral, they can enter, and asks if they can request purification of a cardiolus. The white shaman asks if the two are human and half-human, and says it's not possible today since it's exam day, and only shamans can enter. Sakura apologizes and says they have a letter of referral from the Adventurer Guild. The white shaman, annoyed, says he already said today is exam day so they can't enter, no matter whose letter it is. The exam is more important. They need to leave. Tsuki says they won't do that. They have a referral letter, so he has to let them in. The shaman laughs, mocking his courage, saying he'll make it clear that here in the Shaman Guild, power belongs to them. No matter how many days pass, he cannot enter until the exam ends. In a low voice, Sakura says he can't afford to anger him here. Doug approaches and asks what's all the commotion. He's the representative of the Northern Shaman Association, president of the Northern Shaman Association, rank Blue Shaman. The white shaman apologizes for the disturbance and says these rude ones came on exam day asking for cardiolus purification. He already refused them. Shiro asks if he's responsible and says he has a letter of recommendation from the guild and wants to enter. The white shaman asks how he dares speak to the president like that. Doug says a shaman shouldn't make such a fuss. He'll do the purification but doesn't have time for him today since it's exam day. He should come after the exam. The protagonist thinks he's in a hurry. Leveling up is the most important thing for him, and says he's pressed for time and asks if there's no other way. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.